Call this meeting to order at 7 o'clock. If you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Now I ask for a moment of silence for those that are missing in action and prisoners of war. Thank you. Okay, Secretary Billups, could we please have a roll call vote? A roll call attendance. Sorry.
Is everybody here? Sure, thank you. Vice President Heyman,
Here.
Secretary Billups is present. Counselor Minnick,
Here.
Counselor Wagner,
Here.
President Tunis,
Here.
Counselor Banto,
Yeah.
Counselor Brandis,
Here.
Counselor Andrusko,
Here.
Counselor Wentz,
Here.
Counselor Silva. Is he on Zoom?
He may be joining us shortly.
Okay. Counselor Blackwell.
Present.
Okay, thank you. And of course, our Honorable Mayor Ed Brown is excused today. We have,
Please, if we could just keep it down in the audience. Everyone's going to have the opportunity to speak if they sign in, but please, Councilor Billups.
yes, we have our CAO, well, Matt is here. Thank you, Matt. We have our CAO Crandall Jones. We have Solicitors Kilkenny, Gallagher, and Bryant. We have our Chief Municipal Clerk, Kate Doggett. We have, I can't see back there. Say it. Officer who? Okay, thank you, because I can't see back there. We have Officer Freer and Officer Bateman, and of course, Radar. Is Radar back there? Hi, Radar. And of course, all of you, the residents of Upper Darby. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Billups. Before moving forward, I would like to wish 6th District Councilman David Banto a happy belated birthday. Hope you had a great day, boss. No problem. The next item on the agenda is our Chief Administrative Officer, Crandall Jones. The mic, yeah.
All right, test. Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, council. Good evening, residents. As you know, this is the third of the fourth updates that I'll be giving related to the ARPA projects as stipulated by the court. I will share that we did update the monthly ARPA report on the 25th of May, as we said. So the recent, as of May 25th, is on the website. We also have placed on the website the documents, and as well as this here on the table here, the documents that support both the report that I'm about to give and the discussions council will have later in the meeting related to amendments, repeals to the existing ARPA ordinances. So I'll start the report, Eric, if you could hit the first one. So basically what I want to do, obviously, is give a status of the funding. I also want to discuss the funding that'll be proposed tonight by the in the mayor's absence for monies to be put into a restricted capital reserve. Talk about the rationale for doing that, and also talk about the process and next steps that we recommend council as you consider this. So I wanted to start again by where we always start. giving updates, particularly on items that were specifically requested in the initial submission to the court. Those being the firehouse items, there has been some change, and so all of them have signed the necessary memorandums of understanding, and we're ready now to proceed as they get their items, documents in to us. I did get a document today specifically from the Garrett for Drexel Hill Firehouse, where they have gone through the CoStarz process, secured a bid, and the cost is at $98,320. So they've secured a vendor. We're ready to proceed with the process with them. The other firehouses are still in the process of securing their vendors and their quotes. And we'll continue as needed as they proceed. Thank you, Eric. So Watkins Center, again, we still are working on the scoping. We've identified some items that'll be done, and that process will just continue. We'll keep you updated, and we'll keep the website updated as monies begin to get expended there. Next, please. So let's talk about the money that's spent to date. This is really just kind of a recap of the last presentation I made, and where we were awarded $41,761,939. Prior to 2024, we expended $16,732,147, which is about 40% of the monies. And we're projected to encumber by the end of this year another $10.56 million, which is another 23% of the funds that were allocated. So what we're expecting by the end of the year is to have encumbered and expended $27,313,766.18, a little over 65% of the monies that are allocated, with total funds remaining of $14,448,172.82, which is about almost 35% of the funds that are remaining to be expended. Next. So as I've shared with you in the last couple of meetings at least, there certainly is a need for us now to be serious in our consideration of protecting that $14.4 million. The number of categories of projects that are there that were identified for those funds. There's no way, and even in January, there was no way that $14.4 million was going to be encumbered by the end of this year. And so the prudent thing that we're recommending, and certainly in my discussions with the mayor, in my discussions with President Hafiz, in my discussions with the Finance Committee, what we're recommending is a process whereby we protect that money so that it does not get recaptured by the federal government, because it has to be encumbered by the end of this year, or all unencumbered funds are subject to be reclaimed by the federal government. Next slide, please. So here's a strategy that we're proposing for protecting these funds from reclamation. I will also add, let me point out, this presentation will be on the website in the morning as well. So we'll put it in that same place under the ARPA reports section of the Finance Department. But here's a strategy that we're looking at in terms of doing this. One is to tonight ask council to advertise the repeal of the existing ARPA ordinances. That would mean that the funds from the repealed amended ordinances then would go into revenue replacement as a part of the process. Then there's, in this set of ordinances that you'll consider tonight, is a revenue replacement ordinance 3165, which creates a 2024 budget surplus that has to be dealt with. We have also in this package tonight ordinance 3167 that moves those funds from the revenue replacement fund that if you establish it, and establishes a restricted capital fund that the monies would reside in. Next slide. So just for clarity, the restricted capital funds, what it is the funds that are accessed for specific capital purposes through enabling legislation by the council. So the council is going to remain in charge of where that money goes. It's not with administration. Once you put it into a restricted capital fund, we'd have to go through the deliberative process, both ourselves, the council, staff, the mayor can make proposals to council in terms of the expenditure on those funds for capital projects. And, that would be subject to the deliberation of you guys and approval ultimately to release those funds for whatever projects are proposed. So why are we recommending this process? One, because again, based on our estimations of the $14.4 million, it's not going to be encumbered by 12/31/2024. And if not encumbered, again, it's subject to being reclaimed by the federal government for whatever purposes that they might determine. So let's talk a little bit about, and I want to share some of the reasons for the lack of encumbrance. Some of it has to do with the capacity of small organizations in not being able really to spend their funds. And they've sat there. Some of it has to do with projects that, decent projects that did not have specific scopes attached to them. And there's just not enough time to develop a scope and get the project to a point where it can be improved and encumbered by the 12/31/24 deadline. And these projects do need to be scoped, and what we look to do is bring clearly scoped projects from you. And if you come to us with the ideas for projects, then clearly scope them, bring them to you as council for you to have the deliberation and make the decisions you need to make in terms of whether or not you want to, as a body, to support those projects. And then there still continues to be supply chain issues and for equipment, materials for a lot of projects as well, and we have to deal with that. So another reason why we're recommending this is that it will allow for a lot more stakeholder collaboration. There are projects on there for economic development, small business, recreation, open space, et cetera. In terms of being able to actually scope and have those projects, my experience has always been to have as much stakeholder collaboration as possible in putting a scope together, getting that scope and the projects in front of you, in front of the council. That's what we like to do in this instance. Again, there were project ideas that were put out there, but there weren't any specific scopes that were developed in terms of what those projects actually were being, what projects were actually being delivered. Even in things like, let's say, recreation equipment and equipment for recreation and playgrounds. That's great to do it, but again, my history, my experience has been at least have the conversations with the neighborhoods that you're going to put the equipment in so they can tell you what equipment they want put in there, and we could have that information for council. I'll tell you just from personal experience in doing this, I've seen communities sometimes where that happens, and there was some equipment bought for a neighborhood and for kids. And the neighborhood had aged out and there were no more kids in the neighborhood. So I think it's always important to go investigate, have that discussion with stakeholders, bring that data back and say to council, these are the things we found out about recreation in these areas. These are the areas we think in all parts of the community that should be served as far as recreation. Here's the scope of work that we're proposing to do it. What do you think about it? Vote it up and down and we'll move forward. And that's the methodology that we would use. Also, I think it makes sense in terms of where we are, and in the little over 90 days now that I've been in Upper Darby, one of the things that I've come to learn, which is not unusual to Upper Darby, there are a lot of capital issues that council is going to have to deal with. I mean, there are issues with stormwater, there are issues with wastewater, there are issues with just water in general. There are issues with roads and other infrastructure that you're going to deal with. I think that it's a good opportunity as we're doing this for you guys to consider looking at what other opportunities you might have in terms of using these monies. Again, it's ultimately your decision. But I think when you're talking about the level of issues we're seeing, it's going to come down to a standpoint of you guys making the decision about whether you want the taxpayers to pay for it or whether you want the federal government through ARPA to pay for some of these other issues. I think we need to get them all on the table for you to do it. One of the initial things I think I've talked about a few times in talking with you guys, one of the initial reasons that ARPA was developed and the guidance that we all got as folks who were implementing these projects, do those projects that the community couldn't otherwise do. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I'm not saying that any of the projects laid on the table aren't worthy. That's not my decision to make. That's yours. What I'm saying is you've got $14 million and you've got substantially more capital issues than $14 million than you're going to have to deal with in terms of stormwater, sewer, roads, et cetera. At least as we're having all of these discussions, we're in the midst now of starting our budget process, and we're talking about putting together for the first time a 5-year capital budget plan for you guys to consider. And I think rolling all of this into that process is a part of that. Ultimately, you'll make the decision. And then I think, lastly, why I think this is a good idea, I know that there's a lot of discussion about what the mayor may or may not want to do with these funds, but ultimately the mayor, you guys, or staff, or whoever is going to make a proposition, and it ultimately is going to be your decision. But I think it opens it up for some level of collaboration in terms of putting whatever your 5-year capital program that involves ARPA and non-ARPA money as you go forward. Thank you. And that's where we are. So at the end of the night, when we get to those various ordinances, certainly we'll go through them as you need to, but I'm happy to field any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, CAO Jones. Next item on the agenda is rules of meeting decorum. Upper Darby residents have the opportunity to speak for 3 minutes. Residents are prohibited from making threats, using profanity, or acting in a manner that would impede or prevent the conduct of the business of the meeting. Any person who attends the meeting or makes remarks, disrupts, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of the meeting after receiving a verbal warning may be required to leave the meeting at the discretion of the council president. Public forum should not exceed 30 minutes. If a resident chooses to ask questions, they are voluntarily giving up their time for a response. This means the 3-minute timer will continue to run no matter who is speaking. The timer will be clearly displayed on the screen to my left. Secretary Billups.
Thank you. First, we have Sparrow Pappas.
You didn't butcher my name. You new members, stop drinking the Kool-Aid. You gotta stop being a rubber stamp for the mayor. These are our funds given to us by the government to spend in our community, to spend in our parks, to spend for a senior center that she had proposed, that she had the scope. She had everything in place, but they're ignoring it because they don't want another senior center. They want a senior center down in 69th Street, and no one wants to go in 69th Street. No one wants to go down there. The crime situation is unbelievable. They need more police. They won't fund the police. Okay, Mrs. Blackwell, when are you going to cross Lansdowne Avenue and come into my area? The only time I saw you in my area is when you were getting votes. That's the only time. I live behind Planet Fitness. When are you going to cross Lansdowne Avenue? Okay? Ms. Brannis, did you pay your taxes? Mr. Heyman, did you pay your taxes? And Mr. Heyman, how can you stand by President Biden when he's throwing Israel under the bus? He's practically stabbing them in the back. Okay? How can you stand by him? What if it was done to the black community? Okay? He's practically stabbing them in the back. Hamas is raping Israeli women and children, okay? They're Hamas. He wants to say, oh, Hamas, stop firing Israel, give up. You've accomplished everything, but Hamas is going to keep on doing what they're doing. They've already destroyed that Gaza thing that President Biden built. Okay? I said my piece, hopefully, and I hope you take everything seriously, that stop drinking the Kool-Aid and stop being a rubber stamp for this administration. These funds are our funds. They're not supposed to go, you made a budget. You're supposed to abide by it. Stop spending the money like drunken sailors. That's what you're basically doing. Take the beer goggles off and stop spending the money. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is David Heyman.
David Heyman, 727 Stanbridge Road, Drexel Hill. I'd like to read from a presentation that was made on September 20th, 2023 by Mr. Gordon Mann of Public Financial Management, we know as PFM, was hired by the administration to look at a 5-year plan for Upper Darby. It strengthened its weaknesses. And in that presentation, he mentioned the use of the ARPA funds, and I want to read from his presentation. Upper Darby received $41.7 million under the American Rescue Plan in 2021. As of May 2023, the township leaders estimated there was approximately $15 million in unassigned funding, and at this time, it's about $290,000. The township already used ARPA to temporarily cover its operating deficits in 2022 and 2023, and the federal guidelines allow for the township to do so one final time in 2024. This would just prolong the difficult decisions that the township leaders will have to make to address the reality that recurring revenues are not high enough to cover recurring expenditures. We instead strongly recommend that the township put the remaining unassigned ARPA funds in a capital improvement account to fund badly needed infrastructure projects, facility system repairs, and on and on. Following this meeting, I went up to him and I told him who I was, and I said, look, I'm probably going to comment at some point publicly on what you just said, and I want to make sure I don't misunderstand you. Well, from what I'm hearing from you, you were telling me to rescind these ordinances and put them into the general fund as revenue replacement would be fiscally irresponsible. Is that correct? His answer was yes. When I hear that that's about what you're about to do and put that into the general fund where it can be used to kick the can down the road to not just prolong our growing financial problems, I'm very concerned. This money needs to be spent on capital projects and not balancing the budget for the next 4 years.
Dolores Lombardi.
Dolores Lombardi, 29 South Kirkland Avenue, Upper Darby. I came tonight to speak about the revisions being proposed to the ARPA ordinances. Last year, Council had unanimously passed a series of ordinances to spend Upper Darby's ARPA funds on community projects. Now, the proposed revisions to those ordinances aren't minor or even major adjustments to the original ordinances. They essentially wipe out all the projects planned for improving Upper Darby by sending all of the remaining funds to revenue replacement. Do we need to send so much to revenue replacement? Was nothing budgeted for community projects? Upper Darby sorely needs improvements to its business districts and parks. We need to make many of the neighborhoods more family-friendly. We need to attract better businesses and stable residents who want to live and work in Upper Darby. I live on a street off Westchester Park, and I was so excited to finally see the chance of making the Westchester Pike Business District nicer. It has only gotten worse over the 22 years that I've lived here. 5 years ago, I worked hard to help elect Democrats, certain in the belief that they would make a difference, improve the Westchester Pike corridor, and bring in new businesses. But they haven't. COVID did intervene and slowed everything down, but then the ARPA funds came. And I must have heard the phrase from elected officials that the ARPA funds are a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity at least 100 times. Where is that opportunity now? I was also excited about the community center and the arts and education center, things for young people to do, places for them to go. These are needed in a neighborhood. Our seniors also deserve their centers improved and expanded, so we once again can have one on each side of the township. And we are constantly reminded of the need for more funds for the police and fire departments to keep us safe. What is your plan now to deliver on these promises? Without defined ordinances and timelines on where to spend the funds and what to improve, how can we trust that any of these projects will get done? Or will they get kicked down the road, like so many projects in the past? And I've been listening to council meetings since, McCosey's time and seeing all these things proposed and never happen. $13 to $14 million out of the almost $42 million of ARPA funds received is not too much to spend for the community to reap the benefits of ARPA's once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If these funds are invested in tangible projects that improve Upper Darby's quality of
Thank you,
life,
Ms. Lombardi.
they will
Time's up.
return a profit over time.
Thank you. Next is Catherine Cowan.
Forgive me, I'm very nervous being up here. Most of what I wanted to say has been said, really, with regard to the ARPA funding, which was my main concern in coming here tonight. But I do have a question, and I'm just putting it very simply, the way I think about it, the way I see it as a voter, and I don't understand why we're still talking about this, because didn't we already have a unanimous vote by the council on how these funds would be used? I understand that there was a certain amount of time that the mayor had to sign it, and the former mayor, and she chose not to, I guess. And then there was an extension, 15 days, I've heard something to that effect, that it was supposed to automatically go into effect. So why are we still talking about this? And I'm sorry, but I am a little aggravated. And this is going to sound a little snarky, but I honestly don't know the answer to this. I am really asking this question of you, okay? This is not to be a smart aleck. It really isn't. So we know all this has happened, and, the ordinances or the township council passed, the way they wanted the disbursement of these funds. What I want to know is, can the mayor just say, I don't like what council did, not going to do it? Does the mayor have the right to do that? And what is the criteria for him to make that decision? I would really like to know. That's an honest question. It's not just to be snarky. And I'm done. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next is John Bazari.
Thank you. Good evening. Unfortunately, I will not be able to attend the June 26th meeting when you are planning on stealing from the residents and business owners of Upper Darby Township. Therefore, I would like to take this opportunity to tell the residents and business owners that this administration, along with 7 members of this council, are liars, thieves, and cowards. They claim to be transparent and do what is in best interest for the residents and business owners of this township, but all they are doing is gaslighting you. During his 100 days in office, Mayor Brown did nothing to execute against the 8 ARPA ordinances that were unanimously approved back in 2023. Now he wants to take back that money. The township received $41.7 million from the American Rescue Plan Act, otherwise known as ARPA. 4 of the 7 council members adamantly wanted these funds released when they were being held up due to an investigation. When finally released, approximately $13 million of these funds were unanimously voted in favor of allocating money towards 8 ordinances back in July and August of 2023. Now these 4, along with 3 members of this council, are supporting taking back 14.4 as revenue, 14.4 million as revenue replacement for the 2024 budget. ARPA was paid for 2021 and 2022 due to the loss of revenue and economic impact to the community as a result of COVID for the years 2020 and 2021. In 2020, the township estimated lost revenue of 7.8 million, and in 2022, they estimated lost revenue of 8.7 million for a total of 16.3. From the 41.4 million in total ARPA funds received, the township has used 9.3 million for revenue replacement. Now they want 14.4 million more under the guise of protecting it from having it to go back to the government. Trust me when I say this, they have no plans on protecting this money for you, the resident and business owners, and are robbing you of your right to say how these funds should be allocated and used per the state and local fiscal recovery funds final rule. Residents and business owners, I implore you to pack this room on June 26, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. and take back this township from these thieves, liars, and cowards by speaking against every previously approved ARPA ordinance they plan on repealing.
Thank you. Next is John Damasi.
Good evening. We've spent a lot of money on UHY, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. We needed a good, competent advisor. When we engaged them, were they ever contacted in the putting together what could be done with the funds for your presentation, Mr. Jones? Were they integral in putting together what the strategy was, how to take that back? Were they consulted at all? No, so we paid all this to an ARPA consultant and then we didn't consult them. Okay. Did anyone of the members of the council or Mr. Jones, did anyone watch the Treasury Department's webinars or slideshows on the interim final rule, the definition of obligations? They've had a lot of these presentations. Has anyone watched any of those presentations on the ARPA funds? Is anyone? Just me?
I've watched plenty of presentations on ARPA funds.
The Treasury ones on the interim final rule and the final rule and the definitions?
From the federal government.
Okay. Oh, great. No, I'm actually kind of surprised, but thank you. Great. That's great. Did you read the interim final rule and the final rule and the obligations and the definitions of the obligations?
I watched the presentation, yes.
Okay. So I just want to make sure. So under the interim final rule, and I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to discuss this on the 26th. There is no requirement per se that the funds be encumbered by the 24th of December. They just have to be obligated. Is that correct? Okay. So then if you enter into a sub-award, that's considered an obligation under the interim final rule of November 2023. Is that correct?
I don't agree that arbitrarily entering into an award is an accurate encumbrance of funds. No.
So you didn't watch the right presentations then. I would submit to the council that someone needs to read the interim final rules and the final rules and make sure we are not violating federal law and the treasury regulations. One last item before I step down. Have any of these ordinances that are up for repeal, have any of the appropriations lapsed in those? Have any of those appropriations lapsed? Is there anyone?
Excuse me, Mr. Damasi. I know you're well familiar with Section 910 of the Home Rule Charter, which says every appropriation except as appropriation for capital expenditure shall lapse at the close of a fiscal year to the extent that it is not being expended or encumbered. An appropriation for capital expenditure shall continue in force until purpose for which it is made or accomplished or abandoned. The purpose of such appropriation shall be deemed abandoned if 3 years pass without any disbursement from or encumbrance of the appropriation. Thank you.
Is that a yes?
Sir, you have chosen to litigate some of these matters against the township.
But that's not a yes or a no answer.
Thank you, Mr. Damasi.
That's a fantastic answer. Thank you very much. See you on the 26th.
Put my glasses on. I can see. Next is Becky Duggan.
Becky Duggan. I just want to read very quickly from the February 6th Delco alert that was sent out by Mayor Ed Brown, that the trash and sewer fees are also due on June 20th this year. So I know I don't have a degree in literature or linguistics, but everybody needs to pay their taxes, their sewer fees by the June 20th. And you can, of course, pay it late, just like you can pay your Visa card late, but they're going to want more money. Okay, so on the May 16th meeting, Mr. Jones said that concerning the Watkins Center, that they were going to do some renovation and repair the gym, basketball court, upgrade the security doors, upgrade the bleachers, and some other amenities that need to be taken care of with that $250,000. So we are at the point now where we are discussing it with the engineer in terms of design issues. As we move forward, it will be tracked and added to the list of spendings where the spending stands. So right now, so I don't forget to say it, you'll see that on the chart with the asterisk, Watkins Center spending being in the list of monies that would be recaptured for our capital reserve fund. That was before we knew where we were going with the progress. So let me go through this again. I fully expect that the update that the $250,000 will be moved over to the category of funds we expect to be expended by 2024. So I don't know if that last phrase meant you're going to move it into this slush fund to get done whatever you want to do with it later, or you're actually going to spend it on the Watkins Center, because how it was presented made it sound like it was actually going to be spent on the Watkins Center. I'd also like to know if, in your presentation earlier this evening, you were discussing stakeholders. Are the residents not stakeholders? We sit here every week and beg you to move forward these ordinances and do them. Because I'm going to bet if, when these ordinances were passed and you had gone forward, there would have been plenty of time where we could have spent the money. Danielle, you hear me? Okay, great. So I would just like to reiterate that the residents are also stakeholders. The Watkins Center is important and it needs work done. If it's going to be the only senior center you're going to let us have, because I'm not quite there, but I'm pushing it. I'm getting close. Okay? And why do people who live over in Seacane have to go to 69th Street? It's really not right. So all of these ordinances you're going to repeal and amend. Andrew, you voted yes for these. Danielle, you voted yes for these. Michelle, you voted yes for these. Do you regret your votes now? Do you think they were wrong? Or was this all, because Andrew, you and I stood in that hallway and I told you months ago that this was exactly what they were going to do. This was exactly what was going to happen. We stood in front of the elevator there and I said they are going to repeal all the ordinances so the new mayor can do whatever he wants with them. And that is exactly what is happening. And it's not fair to the rest of the residents, to the seniors, to the Arts and Education Center. You don't want the Arts and Education, everyone's talking about arts and education.
Thank you, Ms. Duggan.
You have art, your arts is closing. We don't care about arts.
Duggan.
Next is Rose Wilson.
Good evening, Rose Wilson, 515 Blythe Avenue. I'm just here to say what everybody else is saying. I don't know what you guys are trying to pull, but it really seems shady and sketchy. It feels like this was the plan all along. I was here in March, I asked Mr. Mayor Brown about the senior center in Drexel Hill, and he said, we're waiting to see which project we're gonna do first. That was a lie. This is, you're wasting our time. I don't understand why we're back here talking about the same issues. It's insane. What are you guys trying to do to this township? Haven't we been through enough? We've been through enough. Do these ordinance, do the right thing.
Thank you. Next is Mary Ellen Oxner.
Good evening, Mary Ellen Oxner. I too am here about, I was shocked to see what today's agenda is, that these repeals and amendments were on this agenda. It floors me. A couple things that confuse me. Mr. Jones, you talked, and Becky just referred to the Watkins Center, that the 250,000 was being addressed, and that's one of the ones you have on there to be repealed. So it can't be both. I'm a little confused.
I'd be happy to give you some clarity
Okay.
if you could
Thank you.
suspend her time so I can answer the question.
CEO, it's fine. I made an announcement that the time will continue to run. I have to treat everyone the same.
Okay.
You-
So again, what these moves does not eliminate that project. It actually just protects the money. The plan is to do that project. There's been no change in that project at all. We're bringing these amendments to protect the money. I don't know how long it's gonna take. We're gonna jump on it, but I don't know how long it's gonna take before we can say we have expended all of the money. I know that if this money is moved into capital reserve, again, as I shared in the presentation, the capital reserve is not revenue replacement. It's actually part of what's happening tonight is to move money to revenue replacement as a first step. But there's also a final ordinance in here that removes it from revenue replacement to capital reserve. And that was the point, to make it that it's only for capital projects in capital reserve that would ultimately come back to this council
Okay.
for release of that money. So it's not money that the mayor or administration can spend without authorization from council.
Okay, so there'll be another ordinance at some point to.
There's
put
one
Watkins.
in tonight, there's an ordinance in tonight's package that is an ordinance to move all the money that is being put in revenue replacement into capital reserve. That's the final ordinance in the list.
Thank you for clarifying that. I
Yes.
appreciate it. You also spoke about, I lost this, okay, tax holder, or stakeholders. There's 8 people in this dais that voted 100% for this. It was one of the very few bipartisan, everybody worked together, things approved. I hope you all have the integrity to stick by your vote. I really, if these go forward to be advertised, I think there's going to be a lot of questions about integrity and about what maybe was really behind all this. It really does smell fishy, but I really hope, I tend to be very naive, and I really hope that you're all still going to do the right thing, that you're going to stick by what you did in the first place, because I really had a lot of hope. And you all have had at least 5 months to work on this, so I don't know why there wasn't any work done to it so far. Thank you.
Next is Olivia Taylor.
Olivia Taylor. I spoke about this a couple of months ago. You're giving $250,000 to the Watkins Center. The Watkins Center is a mixture of people from Philly. We are actually taking care of people from Philly and not our own here. I'm not understanding it. Again, all 11 ordinances were passed, 11-0. But we've got one senior center for outsiders that we're taking care of. and not the elderly who technically built this township. It starts there with the help of the rest of the districts. They pay the highest taxes. These people are in their last years. They have nothing to do but be together in their last days, and we're taking care of outsiders instead of them. I'm not understanding this. But again, you do what you do. It's sneaky, it's underhanded, and you are who you are. It's unfortunate that the people of Upper Darby put you in here, but it's up to us to throw you all out of here. And we will, starting with you, and then you. Who's up? Who's up next year? Oh, I'm going to be rallying. Today I spent the latter day in media and in that zoo. And I'm just going to say this on the record. For what you did to me in January, Kilkenny, you're going to pay. Do you understand me? You are going to pay. I'm sitting in the courthouse with real criminals, and I'm sitting here for a meeting, a council meeting, interrupting a meeting. You think that you're not going to pay for that? You're going to pay for everything. I told you years ago to write a check with my name on it, didn't I? You will do it. I promise you. And let me tell you something, Tunis. If I want to call you an asshole, you're an asshole. All that about profanity is protected speech, asshole. Dare you to try to put me out of here again. Dare you.
Thank you. Next is Joanne Namava.
Joanne Amamong. First thing I want to know, and you can answer these questions at the very end if you choose to, not while I'm talking. Why are you muting this presentation when people clap? You trying to keep the residents at home from knowing that there's support here for what the residents are saying here? Secondly, the community center, which got scratched with the $3 million ordinance is being pulled back. You guys spent like almost $500,000 on that already. So residents at home, you know, they've already wasted $500,000 on that. When's our audit for 2023 going to come out? It's late. Now that the fireworks are going to be at 69th Street Playgrounds, where are people supposed to park? That's a valid question that residents want to know if they want to come see them. There's no parking there. Let's see. Shoot, I can't read that. Oh, there's a lot of drug dealing going on right by Garrettford School. What are we doing to address that? It's not safe over there. It's not safe for the kids. It's not safe for any of the businesses that were supposed to get revitalization money. And oddly, tonight, when I heard Mr. Jones speaking, I thought I heard someone else speaking, a former CIO. It sounded like something he would say. So these ordinances were passed 11-0, and I want to know who at UHY, you can answer this one, who at UHY told you these funds were not protected, that we were going to lose them?
The federal government identified the fact that these funds had to be encumbered by December 31st, 2024. UHY is not the authority, it's the federal government.
So you received a communication from the federal government telling you your funds were in danger?
That's part of the rules of getting.
I understand that, but did you receive a communication from anyone outside of this township that said that these funds were in danger of being taken back?
We constantly receive updates on the rules and regulations, and one of the rules and regulations is that these funds have to be.
You're not answering my question. Just don't bother to answer because you're not answering my question. I don't, now I've lost my train of thought. But anyway, the point is, these were all ordinances that had scope. Okay, I heard double speak because you said things tonight that were just not true. And we had hope for you because we thought you had a fair amount of integrity, but you're sounding just like the guy before you. I'm done.
Thank you. Next is David Dryden.
Good evening, council president, residents. See, Mr. CEO, I haven't had a pleasure meeting you yet. I apologize for not being here for a while. I've been traveling for work. And So I want to start out by talking about the trouble that not only this township is in, but this county and this state. All three are going bankrupt. And it's a matter of misappropriations of money, of businesses leaving. And that's really what I wanted to talk about tonight. But I got a little riled up when I heard about this ARPA stuff, because I do have one question. It could be a yes or no answer. Has any ordinance ever been repealed before?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. So then I would like to propose that council repeal the ordinance that says that I have to have my sewer line inspected before I can sell my house. So, and the other thing I'd like to bring up is, and I know this, is that the ordinance was passed unanimously. The mayor never signed them, but according to what I know, is after 15 days, they're supposed to go into effect. So they didn't go into effect, so I don't understand why. And then we're wasting all this time and resources on trying to find out what we should do with the money when it's already been established what we should do with the money. So I just think this is, it's just like what's happened before, where there's double speak, there's fake things. And when you said about the scope and the stakeholders and all that, if that was an issue, then why did the council unanimously approve these ordinances? Because evidently it must have been checked out. What else do I have to say here? And if it wasn't checked out, then that's a black mark on the council. So I do not feel, I work in a big corporation, and we've just had a layoff of 35 people because our budget wasn't good. We found ways to cut money so that we could have the budget. We don't have the pleasure of getting funds from the government. So I think you guys need to sit down, look at this budget again, cut things, and start over, because you just keep spending, and now you're trying to take the residents' money that was given by the federal government to make this township better and use it for that. And that's not going to get you anywhere. It's going to get you worse. And that's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Judy Duggan.
Good evening. I would like to follow up on something Joanne said. And Danielle, this is especially for you. I know how much you care about 4th District and how much especially you care about Observatory Park. And I took my granddaughter there this afternoon around 5:30. Here comes 2 kids. Oh, I got my money and I got my drugs. And they're selling drugs right there in Observatory Park. Where's our police? Where's anybody that cares? Nobody cares. So thank you for that. But please, I know you do care. So please do something about that. Also, if we hired UHY and paid them I don't know how much money, and they made all these terrible mistakes that none of these ordinances are any good, and we're going to lose all our money, then I think we need to sue UHY and get our money back from them, because that's not right that we spend our money for that. So think about that, because what did they do for us? Except, I don't know. Also, in your presentation, Mr. Jones, you said that the council, once the money is in their capital fund, they could pass new ordinances and use that money. They already did that once, and you tricked them and took the money back. So why would they believe that the administration, that they would follow any ordinance that they pass? And for you, Mr. Heyman, Ms. Billups, Mr. Tunis, Ms. Blackwell, if you vote to rescind these or repeal these, really don't know how I can't say lying liars are going to lie and stealing stealers are going to steal. You guys all pushed so hard for these ordinances, and now you're going to take that money back? It's disgusting. It's awful. It's just awful. So also, now you can answer this question, Mr. Jones, because you answered it for, I think it was Mary Ellen, for Watkins Center. So for the Upper Darby Arts and Education Foundation, that was granted money, are you going to give that money back to them too, like you're going to give it back to Watkins Center? Is that part of the whole little plan, or are you stealing that money from them?
That is not my decision.
But it was your decision for Watkins Center. Okay.
That the decision for the Watkins Center is a project that everybody has said they want to keep. If the council.
Who wanted to keep it?
The council wants to keep it, the mayor wants to keep it.
The council wanted to give money to the senior center in Pilgrim Gardens. The council wanted to give money to the Upper Darby Education and Arts Foundation. That's why they voted 11-0. You weren't here, you weren't here, you weren't here, but the rest of them were here. They voted 11-0. They wanted to give the money to those people, otherwise they wouldn't have voted for it. So can you explain that? So you're not going to give that money back to them, but you.
Not my decision to make.
It is your decision to follow the ordinances that were passed by the township council. I'm sorry, but you're wrong. You're very wrong. You're very wrong, and stealing stealers are going to steal, and lying liars are going to continue to lie. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Duggan.
Thank you. Next is Jean Kosha.
Good evening, everyone. Usually I have my notes prepared, and tonight I don't, so I'm going to just speak more globally. I'd like to speak about the ARPA funds. I know I'm in the minority here, but I'm happy that you're doing this. I think it's another chance to take a look. It doesn't mean that what was passed was like all bad. I don't think it was all bad. I think there's a lot of really good things like the Upper Darby Arts and Education funding. But I also think there are some things that were overlooked, and you know what I'm going to say. It's the library that never got on the list of places that could get some funding, and I think this is a chance to relook at that. So I'm glad that you're doing that. I know that people are, at least people here tonight are upset about it, but I see it as a golden opportunity to re-examine, and if you believe that, you know, what you had passed was good, to go with that. And if you find some other ways to spend it, that's good for the entire community. I think that's great. I disagree with the proposal of doing a senior center at Pilgrim Gardens. I think the Watkins Center needs some serious upgrades and needs some serious programming upgrades and expansion, and really make it good. I've heard about senior centers and other places that are really amazing institutions and really serve the public. And if at some point we do need a second senior center that's more central and would serve the population, not serve Haverford, you know, or other communities on the edges, that would be good. But I think that, you know, let's do something good with what we have here at Watkins. All right, what else was I going to say? I also think, and I know this is like, I'm going to say it's not going to happen, but there's this little slice of Upper Darby right here between Garrett Road and Long Lane. It's a community that has no park, no green space, and we do have a lot of kids in that community. There's 3 apartment buildings there. There's a lot of homes, row homes, and the kids end up playing in the street. There's not a safe place for them to play. So I always advocate. There is a municipal parking lot right on Long Lane. A lot of times it's half full or just, you know, a few cars there. And my dream of dreams, we could take those, you know, municipal cars, put them in the lot over here and turn that space instead of cement into a small playground for kids to play safely in that neighborhood. Because of the busy streets on both sides, there just is no safe place to play. And I will probably mention that until the day I die, because I think it's a great thing. The other thing is the library, 14 seconds. I'm going to send around some flyers for kids, for teens. There's a ton of things going on. We're looking for teen volunteers. These are calendars with the events going on. I'm sorry to say these are only for the municipal branch, and there's tons of things happening at Sellers and at Primus as well, but I don't have their flyers. So I'm going to send this around for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kasha.
Thank you. And that's it.
Thank you, Secretary Billups. The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. Can I ask council, we can approve all these minutes with one vote, if that's okay?
Yep.
Okay. I will like to ask for a motion for the approval of minutes from the council committee meeting from February 7th, 2024. Approval of the minutes from the special meeting from February 14th, 2024. Approval of the minutes from the council meeting from February 21st, 2024. Approval of the minutes from the council committee meeting minutes from March 6th, 2024. Approval of the minutes from the council meeting from March 20th, 2024. and approval of the minutes from the council meeting from May 15th, 2024. Motion made by Councilor Blackwell. Is there a second? Seconded by Vice President Hayman. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No, I was raising my hand to make a comment, but you didn't acknowledge.
I did not see your hand. I apologize.
Okay, so next time I'll do this, right? Okay, I'll do it. I'm a no vote.
It's fine.
I would
So-
explain why in the comments, but I didn't get a chance to speak.
So the vote passes 10-1. We'll be moving on to the next agenda item. It's Planning, Zoning, Building Committee with a presentation for Resolution 1424 by Mayor Ez Brown Administration. How you doing, boss?
Good, okay.
You have the floor whenever you're ready.
Thank you. My name is Mike Robinson from Fox Rothschild. I'm here on behalf of applicant A&W Development LLC. This is for conditional, preliminary, and final land development approval related to some work on a property. I think we're calling it 0 Garrett Road right now. Is that correct, John? Yes, it's going to be, 0 Garrett Road. It's going to be changed. It's the property adjacent to 152 Garrett Road, which is where A&E Construction is located.
1 second. Mr. Chaz, if you could just use the mic next to Councilor Blackwell, she has two, or just to make sure. Come on.
So I'm sorry. The applicant proposes to make some improvements to the property. It's currently being used as an outdoor storage property. It's going to really essentially become an indoor storage property with a shop building. Significant improvements made, landscaping, parking, paving, et cetera. We've been in contact with the zoning official and township engineer. We went before the Planning Commission. We received a letter from the Delaware County Planning Commission. The dialogue has been very productive. We've been able to come to common ground on all outstanding issues, including the form of the resolution and waiver. There are some contingencies in there, but I will let our consultant, CJ Bach of Landcore Consulting, come up, give a brief presentation, and then I'll be available to answer any questions on the application. So thank you.
Good evening. As he had described, I'm here my name's CJ Bach. I'm the civil engineer for the applicant, who, as described here, is proposing a shop building on the adjacent parcel to their main office. They envision using this for general storage of various construction tools and materials, as well as having some construction dumpsters located on the property for kind of collection, a joint kind of centralized collection location for their various construction projects. The plan proposes a 6,600 square foot shop building and 10 parking spaces. That also has 1 loading zone. The plan showing the 2 30-yard dumpsters in the lower right-hand corner of the site, right in here, lower right-hand corner. And the area is heavily screened on the back along Shelbourne Avenue with landscaping and green space we're able to bring to bear along the whole back of the building, and the Walnut side, the left side of the plan view, also able to bring to bear some landscaping and green space to try to beautify the frontage. The Walnut side frontage on the left side, we are proposing to replace the majority of the sidewalk there. Currently, most of the frontage along Oak, Walnut, and Garrett currently functions as one long driveway apron. So in conjunction with kind of eliminating and minimizing the access all along Walnut here, it's going to be channelized to a single location that we're proposing to be a right out only. An application is currently in the PennDOT for scoping to discuss anything, any concerns they may have about this. Tonight, we were hoping to seek an approval conditioned on ultimately satisfying whatever PennDOT may require relative to that access. The property is proposed to be gated and fenced with decorative fencing along Garrett. The entry will be through the A&E parent site to the right. Their vehicles will swing through the site and then again exit as a right-out movement only onto Walnut. Some of the benefits of the project include an overall reduction in the impervious coverage from 100% to 86%. So adding a lot more green space to the development. Certainly, as I've mentioned, a robust landscaping design is also a salient feature to the project. New curb and sidewalk along Walnut, and of course, closing all the driveways, the open-ended driveways along the frontage. Some changes since we last presented this project to the planning board. We've proposed the removal of the actual depressed apron along Garrett. And in this case, on this plan, we're proposing that area to just be returned to some kind of green space. We didn't want to get too carried away with whatever is going on there. We understand there's some Garrett Road improvements that are being planned. And we feel like the frontage there will ultimately just get reworked as part of that. And we didn't want to put too many other improvements in there that may interfere or need to be removed to achieve whatever is going to be done along the Garrett Road alignment. Another change is we reduced the size of the dumpsters. We were 40 yards, now we're 30-yard max. Increase the landscaping, of course, to maximize the number of trees planted on site. We are proposing one tree on the adjacent property just because of lack of space to plant. We've added curbing to the entire parking lot and the parking area, which resulted in actually treating a lot more stormwater. Now the entire site's going through the basin and being provided attenuation and volume reduction. And changing the Walnut driveway to a right out. When we initially presented the project, it was originally contemplated as a full access driveway. And since that time, and in concert with our traffic engineer, we've restricted it now to just a right out movement. The project is in need of several SALDO waivers, including a waiver for preliminary final concurrent, a waiver from dedicating the ultimate right-of-way on Shelbourne and Walnut, a waiver for curbing and not curbing this small landscape island in the middle top section of the parking area. Instead, for drainage reasons, we just continued to curb right through the back of that island. The natural drainage patterns of the site want the water to just to run along that curb. And if we needed to curb that median island, it would have created a lot of drainage issues. So in the interest of promoting the site drainage, we're asking for relief on the curbing of that interior landscape island. We're also asking for relief on minimum curb radii of 5 feet, particularly if we're in the area we're looking to tie in to the existing site to the east. That radius is very small in that upper right-hand corner you may see. My pointer's not very good here. It's right up there. It's an R2, I think. So that's below the 5-foot minimum in the ordinance. We are asking for a waiver to permit us to plant the additional tree that we need over here on the adjacent property. That requires a waiver. We are asking for a waiver on the electric service to enable an overhead service. And we are lastly asking for a waiver to allow us to use a slightly larger loading ratio on our stormwater basin. The stormwater basin currently is proposed at about a 14-to-1 loading ratio compared to the required 8-to-1, or I shouldn't say required, more of a recommended. The basin is adequate and functions perfect in this size configuration. And some of the loading ratios, particularly on a small development, could lead to a very, very large basin, something probably about the size of the entire parking lot. So it's just kind of unreasonable general kind of guidance for loading ratios for a small development like this. particularly one that's started as 99% impervious or 100% impervious. So we were asking for relief on the loading ratio to essentially enable the basin to be of a reasonable size. Obviously, it still functions and meets all the ordinance requirements relative to stormwater. And that's kind of the end of our application, presentation of our application.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for that presentation. I just wanted to be clear. If council considers this land development resolution tonight, the motion would be to approve the resolution and also the waivers. I see Mr. Galante in the back, and I know the applicant's engineer talked about the waivers. Just wanted to see if our township staff had any objection to the waivers.
Yeah. Mr. Galante?
Oh, excuse me, go ahead. Good evening, council. We did work with the applicant. We went back, Joshua Chast and myself, they went to the planning commission. All these waivers were presented at the planning commission. And ultimately, we agree with the waivers in this type of condition and the testimony that was provided by the applicant's engineer. So if there's any questions, just let me know.
Thank you, Mr. Galante. Mr. Chas?
Yeah, and actually, I'd like to thank the applicant for working with us. You know, we're in a much better place than when we started, and just want to thank you.
Thank you. Now, field any questions from council? Councilor Wentz?
I just want to make sure you saw my hand. Thank you very much for adding all the green space on your property. Greatly appreciate that. And then the other tree on the, adjacent property. Question is, do you have a plan in place for for watering the trees, as well as if a tree dies? Because the first 5 years of the tree life, there's always a chance of the trees dying. We've had lots of properties, land developments in our area. Taco Bell on Westchester State Road had like almost 10 trees, and now they're down to like 3. And because there was no follow-up plan for caring for the trees, as well as replacing them if they died. So it's
Yeah,
just
our plan
curious.
does propose a certain, I believe it's a 1.5-year performance guarantee on the landscape, maybe 2 years. I'd have to double check, but that would be actually just something that's required in the ordinance to do. And again, we would provide for that in our prescription and in specifications for the landscaping we're proposing. We're not proposing any irrigation at this time.
But I guess the question then, if there's no irrigation included, then as the owner of the property, do they plan on actually making sure the trees are watered, especially during droughts
Yeah,
and so
to
forth?
the extent that they need to survive at least that first performance period, they're certainly incentivized to do that. I mean, if they're not, if they dead or dying, I think within 2 years, they either need to replace them, or I believe the township may even hold a bond. I'm not sure, a maintenance bond. I would defer to Josh to clarify if he
So
could.
Josh, is there protections in there for the trees?
Yeah, so there is a protection in the Saldo.
Can you bring your mic closer to you?
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'll get closer to it. There is a protection in the Saldo under the landscaping. Let me just find a actual section. 817 F C5. Important thing is, following construction, the applicant shall plant and warrant for a period of 18 months following installation a tree of appropriate size and species as shown in the landscape plan. Any tree that dies within the 18-month period shall be replaced immediately by the applicant.
Great.
So we have rules on the books, and if we get to that point where we're ready to release their escrow after it, and these trees are no longer there, then we'll just simply hold it.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
they'll perform like a site inspection right before and make sure everything is in good shape, which is that's the critical period, certainly, that first 18 months.
Right, right. And I do appreciate the attempt to reduce the impervious surface because of the amount of blacktop on that property.
Yes.
And the constant runoff. So thank you. I definitely appreciate that. That was really my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other questions, comments from any council members?
I do.
Sorry? Just checking this out first.
Okay.
Councilor Billups?
Yeah. Hi. So I heard you say that it's going to be a warehouse?
No, more like a shop for a construction company, where they're going to keep their extra drills, their hammers, their their general tools. And then, again, they do have 2 construction debris waste, dumpsters proposed on the site where maybe a small stake body might come from a project site, come through here, and they can do some kind of centralized collection of construction debris.
So what are you gonna do with that debris?
The debris is periodically removed from the site and taken to an
What do you mean
appropriate
by
landfill.
periodically? So how often does it come? And what do you mean by periodically? Is it every month, every 2 weeks, every week?
If I could defer to the owner a little more
Yeah.
to
Well,
elaborate.
whoever can
sorry,
answer that
To
question.
elaborate on his.
Whoever can answer that
intended
question,
operation.
because it's in my backyard.
Basically, it's construction debris, it's not trash, just so you know. And when
I
you fill
know
the,
what that is, but I'm just asking
when
you,
we fill
how
the
often
dumpster, then they call and they get it emptied and they get it replaced.
Yeah, so construction debris, does it include paint? Like lead? paint?
Probably not, no.
Does it include sheet rock?
Yes.
Okay, so so when this construction comes in, when they call you and say, hey, we have this debris, again, how often is it going to be removed? That's my question.
When the dumpsters are full.
Okay, so how often does the dumpster come?
Well,
How-
1 month it could be in
Okay.
2 days, the next month it could be 2 months.
Okay. Okay, so, so when the dumpster is full and then you remove it and you take it somewhere else, where do you take it?
It goes to a transfer station.
Transfer
It gets broken down and recycled. And then the trash goes to a landfill and the recycling goes to a recycling.
And where's the transfer station?
What's that?
Where's the transfer station?
It all depends on which company you hire.
That's all the questions I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Secretary Billups. Councilor Bento?
Yes. So I'm assuming that your operation will involve a lot of heavy vehicles, right? Like
Small construction trucks and stuff, such, yes.
small construction.
And the
truck.
truck's large enough to,
What size are we talking about?
again, he could elaborate. Some trucks.
We have 2 stake bodies. One is a 14-footer and one is a 12-footer. They've been coming to the site for 24 years. Nothing is changing. All we're doing is moving from across the street to here.
I get that, but I'm concerned with the traffic, the street, and
It's the same exact traffic, same as been going on for the last 25 years. Nothing's going to change. It really is. We're not expanding or anything like that. Actually, it's probably less than what's going on for 25 years because we don't self-perform anymore because how busy we got. So we have to manage the site. So it's probably going to be less, but I'm going to say it's the same just to.
okay.
I would just like to share, the property is in my district. It is important to note where Mr. Chas noted is A&W has made a lot of changes. My biggest concern is the property was an eyesore in my district, and I think they're taking the steps to counter that by adding green space. And in my experience, they've always been open to some of the things the residents ask in the neighborhood. So I'll just ask council if they could approve this resolution here tonight. And I'm sorry. I'm going to go to Councilor Wagner.
Thank you. Frankly, I'm very familiar with A&E Construction, and they are an excellent contributor to the betterment of Upper Darby. And I agree with President Tunis that, frankly, A&E makes things nicer and they make things better. And it sounds like that's exactly what they're doing here. And I thank them for bringing this before us. And I too ask council to approve this tonight.
Councilor Silva.
Thank you. So I have a question about section 821A about the overhead electrical connection as opposed to an underground connection.
Yes, sir.
Where would that electrical connection come into the property? Would it go?
We
over-
feel like the electric's going to be serviced off of the Shelbourne frontage, and I think they're going to just come in on a pole. I mean, we're at their mercy how they want to service the property, and we feel like they're going to want to just do an overhead service.
Okay.
Because the building is right next to the right next to the poles out there. It's very close. Yeah, yeah, so I don't have the other utility plan, but yes, along this back frontage, Shelbourne, the back side of the building, you can see there, they're 4 feet from the property line, which in a separate adventure, we were at the zoning hearing board to get relief to do that. But there's just not enough room back there to probably do anything different. I just feel like they're gonna come in overhead. And as it's a function of the ordinance to require underground, it behooved us to request the waiver, not yet knowing how we'll be told they need to service it.
Okay, and since it's, yeah, was my concern was like, is it Garrett or?
No,
Walnut,
we
or
feel like
would
it's
it be
gonna be Shelbourne. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's services back there, there's lines, there's overhead, all along Shelbourne. And given the proximity of the building, it just seems to make so much sense that that's the side they're gonna come from.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the dumpster area that's only for construction waste. It sounds like if it's a shop, any shop waste, what would just be?
No,
Like
any-
shop oils or whatever, any of that would just go from the shop and out?
Yeah, any other specific stuff that needs to be disposed of by, some other methods will be done by some private entity or removal.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be on that adjacent to Shelbourne location. That's
No,
just construction.
no,
Okay.
no.
That's it. Thank you so much.
For no further comments for council members, is there a motion on the floor?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Wentz.
And that includes the waivers as well. Okay.
That includes the approval and the waivers. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And, okay, in favor of resolution 1424 and approving the waivers. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you all very much.
1 nay. Passes 10-1.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
No problem. I'm going to give our folks a second to get the tech back set up and continue the business. Okay. The next item on the agenda is our Honorable Mayor Brown. And there's a resolution 1524, to appointing boards and authorities and commissions. CAO Jones, can you take lead on this?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Council Resolution 15-24 is a resolution of the township appointing members of the Mucking Sewer Authority, Municipal Employees Pension Board, Historical Commission, Planning Commission, and Shade Tree Commission. The resolution is proposing that the following appointments be made to the Mucking Sewer Authority. Jeff Roken be reappointed to a term that will expire 12/31/27. For the Municipal Employees Pension Board, Jess Browness, Councilmember Jess Browness, is appointed as a Class B member of the Pension Board. For the Historical Commission, Stephen Nitz, reappointed to a term that will expire 12/31/2026. Bart Everts, reappointed to a term that will expire 12/31/2026. Stanley Houston Smith, reappointed to a term that will expire 12/31/2025. George Ambrose, appointed to a term that will expire 12/31/2025. For the Planning Commission, Lee Jordan, appointed to a term that will expire 12/31/2027. For the Shade Tree Commission, Eric Burns, appointed to a term that would expire 12/31/27.
Okay, thank you, CAO Jones.
President Tunis, I just want to let you know that I'm going to recuse myself from this vote.
Okay, Counselor Brandis will be recusing herself for this vote as she is one of the nominees. Is there any questions, comments, or concern regarding the appointees for tonight?
I just have one. Are you going to do these individually?
It's one resolution. I was hoping to do them all and within one resolution. Is there a concern regarding that?
Yes, I'm in agreement with some, not with others.
I'm going to make a motion to approve Resolution 15-24.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second on the floor to approve Resolution 15-24. Is there any discussion?
Second.
First and second, discussion?
I only think it's appropriate to do these one at a time. It's inappropriate to put them all in one resolution. I don't think that's fair. I don't think it's right. There are some on here who I think are completely deserving of being on these boards. Others I think are not. So I do not want to sit here and say that I'm in disagreement with some of them, but I don't think it's appropriate to take a vote on all of these at once. You want to take a block vote on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different appointments. I truly do not think that that is appropriate.
Okay, council members can always abstain and state reason for their votes. Is there any discussion? Any more discussion? I'm sorry, Councilor Wentz?
Yes, I actually agree with Counselor Wagner. I understand putting multiple people from the same commission on the same ordinance, but so many different commissions, boards and commissions, I think it's inappropriate. So I will be voting no, even though I do support some of these appointments, but I don't support all of them. So I'm going to have to vote no.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Wentz. There's no further discussion. There's a motion and second on the floor. All in favor of Resolution 1524? Okay, Vice President Hayman, ask for a roll call vote. Secretary Billups, can we please have a roll call vote on Resolution 1524?
So this is a roll call vote on Resolution 1524, appointing people to various commissions and committees, correct?
Yes.
So this is a roll call vote on Resolution 1524, appointing various people to various commissions and committees. Vice President Hayman?
Yes.
I'm gonna come back to me. Counselor Minnick,
Yes.
Counselor Wagner,
I don't even know how to vote here because I guess I'm going to have to abstain, but I'm going to tell you why. I'm in agreement with Mr. Roken, Mr. Nitz, Ms. Jordan, and Mr. Burns. I'm not in agreement with the other appointees.
thank you. President Tunis,
Yes.
Counselor Banto,
Yes.
Counselor Brandis is recused. I got you. Counselor Andrusko,
Yes.
Counselor Wentz.
No.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Silva,
Yes.
Counselor Blackwell,
Yes.
Counselor Minnick, did you say yes? I'm sorry. Yes. Okay, sorry about that. Secretary Billups is a yes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 abstain, 1 no, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 yes. And 2 abstentions. No, Laura said no. She said no.
Yeah. Councilor Wentz, would you just like to state your vote for the record?
She said no.
I was very clear on my no. I'm not the person who abstained. There's 2 abstentions, Councilwoman Wagner and Councilwoman, sorry, I'm going to butcher your name. Jess.
Brandis, I know.
Yeah, we're just simply trying to get clarity, that's all.
I'm just asking for clarity, and I know.
So
I
it's
said-
8 yeses.
It passes. We'll be moving on to the next agenda item. Thank you. CAO Jones?
Thank you, Mr. President. Still under the area of Mayor Brown, he had asked that I read his report to council. He sent it to me, and so I'll do that now. Good evening, President Tunis, Vice President Hayman, council, solicitors, administration, and the public. Thank you to everyone who's here tonight, attending the meeting or watching remotely at home. We appreciate community members and stakeholders who want to stay informed about all things Upper Darby. I'm sorry that I can't be present with you tonight, but I wanted to provide you with the mayor's message nevertheless. This is an important time for the administration, and we're making key decisions to move Upper Darby in the right direction. During the meeting, Crandall will provide a third ARPA report outlining the next phase of our plan and how these allocations will be used on behalf of the township. Since our last meeting, several important events have taken place. On May 18th, one of our community showcase events took place, and that was the 14th annual Shona Run in Arlington Cemetery. This is an important and fun event that the entire community rallies around and participates in. Jen Shona and her team did an amazing job, and this event gets bigger and better every year. I was sad to miss this event due to being out of town, but I look forward to participating again next year as I did last year. On May 24th, I had an excellent meeting with Enrique Hervada, Chief Operating Officer of Cobb Creek's Golf Foundation. Thank you, Councilman Andrusco, for connecting us. Mr. Hervada gave me quite an education in the history of the course and the status of the multi-million-dollar modernization and renovation. I'm most excited education center that will be the first part to open, and it has the financial support of Tiger Woods. This multi-use facility will definitely add value to the Upper Darby community. Next, I participated in several community events on Memorial Day. First, I proudly stood as mayor with Upper Darby police officers and Upper Darby firefighters along the second base line on the field to participate in the Memorial Day festivities conducted by the Drexel Hill Little League organization. Nick Hoyt and his team always do a great job, as their events are always very well executed. Next, I attended the solemn event excuse me, at the Arlington Cemetery conducted by the Marine Corps. I then attended the Veterans Memorial event at Montrose Cemetery, where serviceman Brian Sheriff Taylor was honored for his service. Next, I attended the Memorial Day event at Cardigan Firehouse, and then finally, the U.S. Marine Corps event at their location in Chicane. I was honored to be allowed to speak at this event about the importance and significance of Memorial Day. Thank you, Councilwoman Wentz, for sending out a detailed email about all of the Memorial Day events. On Monday, May 30th, we welcomed Mr. Blenn's autistic support class to the administration building, where they were very enthusiastic and asked tons of great questions about my role as mayor and what my responsibilities are. On Friday, May 31st, I was proud to swear in our newest parking enforcement officer, Dominique Carter. In summary, I look forward to attending as many community events as possible and continuing to engage with the community. President Tunis, Vice President Hayman, and Council, that concludes my mayor's message. Thank you.
Thank you, CAO Jones. If we can move to the next agenda item, which is 10.0, Chief Administrative Officer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Council, you have before you Resolution 16-24 is a resolution of the township for destruction of certain public records. We provided you with a listing in your packages of all the records that are going to be destroyed in this. Several boxes. The majority of these records are old block party closures, proof of advertising of public meetings, summer job applications that are no longer valid, parking violations that have been adjudicated and taken care of, reports and receipts that have been taken care of. And this is all in accordance with the Municipal Records Act of January 18th, 1968, as amended July 23rd, 2009, and March 28, 2019.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 16-24.
Motion made by Vice President Hayman, second seconded by Counselor Blackwell. Solicitor Kilkenny.
Excuse me, Mr. Jones, did Mr. Alberts bring up that there was one
Oh, I'm
portion of that that may have been a
Yes.
typo?
I apologize. There was one descriptive on the FN item that's in your package. It was described as an accounts, old accounts payable records, old accounts receivable records, I'm sorry, but they are actually old accounts payable records. And so that correction should be made. Thank you, Mr. Solicitor.
Thank you. There's a motion second on the floor. Is there any discussion from council members? Seeing none. All in favor to pass resolution 16-24 with the correction. I'm sorry, Mr. Jones, can you just state the correction one more time for the record?
Under the item description FN, it is not accounts receivable, it's accounts payable.
So the person that made the motion and seconded, they accept that change?
Yes.
Councilor Blackwell, do you accept that?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Just a question.
Sorry, Councilor Silva?
Yeah, item 7 is FN-2, accounts receivable, and then item number 8 is FN-3, accounts receivable also. So both of them were meant to be accounts payable, or one of them was meant to be accounts payable, or?
He told me that he just said that accounts receivables should be accounts payable.
Okay.
Accounts payable. So I'm assuming it's both should be
Yeah.
accounts payable.
From my conversation with him, it was the same direction he brought up. He didn't specify it was 2 or 3. He just said it should be changed. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
No.
One opposed?
2 opposed.
2 opposed? Okay,
It's like 3 opposed.
I'm sorry. All right, could you just do it again? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
No.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Nay. Yeah. Passes 8-3. For the next item on the agenda, I will ask council if they are okay with CAO Jones doing the summaries of each ordinance, and then followed by council comments, and then followed by the vote. Is anyone opposed to that? Okay, we will proceed with CAO Jones, and then council comment, and then proceed with a vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ordinance 3156 is an ordinance of the Township of Upper Darby, County of Delaware, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, amending Ordinance 3122 and providing for the transfer of unencumbered ARPA supplemental appropriation funds to the 2024 budget as ARPA revenue replacement, repealing inconsistent ordinances or parts thereof, providing for a severability clause, and providing for an effective date. In summary of the ordinance, this it amends Ordinance 3122, which provided $2,500,000 for the Upper Darby Fire Department. And it transfers the revenue to replacement, transfers this to revenue replacement, the unencumbered balance of those funds in the amount of $462,687.64. You can continue? Okay, thank you. The second one is Ordinance 3157. This is an ordinance of the Township of Upper Darby, County of Delaware, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, amending Ordinance 3121 and providing for the transfer of unencumbered ARPA supplemental appropriations funds to the 2024 budget as ARPA revenue replacement, repealing inconsistent ordinances or parts thereof, providing for a severability clause, and providing for an effective date. Again, this ordinance Ordinance 3121 provided $1.5 million for open space acquisition. This ordinance now transfers the unencumbered balance of $1,148,756.52 to revenue replacement.
Councilor Silva.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was okay to ask questions at this time or not, but, so section 2, so obviously there was an amendment to section 1, the amount that we set aside for open space acquisition, and $351,243.48 seems like a very specific number. In section 2, there's no kind of amendment as to intended targets for acquisition, but I don't believe it's possible that we'd be purchasing all 3 of these parcels for that amount of money. Did you guys make an amendment to what targets you were interested in acquiring, or none of these listed, or?
We haven't changed any of the targets at all for acquisition. Again, the purpose of this is to move the money to protect the funds. So we haven't changed any targets for acquisition.
All right. Okay, so
Sorry, Counselor Silva, just, when I started this, I did ask council if, Mr. Jones can do the, summary and introductions first, and then council can provide comment and questions. I did give Counselor Silva the opportunity to speak. I'm gonna allow him to speak, but I'm gonna ask council if we can just wait to what we agreed on, through when Mr. Jones is finished. So, Mr. Silva, you have the floor.
all right, thank you. Okay, no, that was my question. So the target list has not changed. How did you arrive at the number? And
That number is what is remaining in unencumbered funds. That $1,148,756,052 is what is remaining in unencumbered funds for that ordinance.
okay, so the 351, 243.48 includes money that was already spent to acquire property, but none of these 3 targets were on that list. What was acquired, is that correct?
Diane, I'm sorry, Diane Scooty here is our controller, is here, she can.
Yeah. Diane, I would need you to have to move up, either just take a seat or talk in the microphone. Yeah, I think you may have to, it may be best to take a seat.
So what was purchased with the 351,000 was Blanchard Road and 0 Lansdowne, which was formerly 8001 Lansdowne.
Okay, all right, thank you.
The next one is ordinance 3158, an ordinance of the Township of Upper Darby, County of Delaware, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, amending ordinance 3120 and providing for the transfer of unencumbered ARPA supplemental appropriation funds to the 2024 budget as ARPA revenue replacement, repealing inconsistent ordinances or parts thereof, and providing for a severability clause and providing for an effective date. This amends ordinance 3120, which provided $5 million for sewer upgrades, $2 million for police, and $150,000 for gun violence prevention. This ordinance would transfer the unencumbered balances of $50,000 for police and $132,709.54 for gun violence to revenue replacement. The next is an ordinance of the Township, ordinance 3159, County of Delaware, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, amending ordinances 3137 and providing for the transfer of unencumbered ARPA supplemental appropriation funds to the 2024 budget as ARPA revenue replacement, repealing inconsistent ordinances or parts thereof, providing for a severability clause, and providing for an effective date. Ordinance 3159 amends ordinance 3137, which provided $2,260,000 for Upper Darby Parks upgrades. The transfer to revenue replacement would transfer the unencumbered balance of $1,886,143.68 to revenue replacement. Ordinance 3160 is an ordinance of the Township of Upper Darby, County of Delaware, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, amending Ordinance 3123 and providing for the transfer of unencumbered ARPA supplemental appropriation funds to the 2024 budget as ARPA revenue replacement, repealing inconsistent ordinances or parts thereof, providing for a severability clause, and providing for an effective date. Ordinance 3160 amends Ordinance 3123, which provided $245 for COVID relief and negative economic impact. This would be the unencumbered balance of $1,460,073.02 would be transferred to revenue replacement with this ordinance. Ordinance 3161 is an ordinance of the Township of Upper Darby, County of Delaware, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, amending Ordinance 3139 and providing for the transfer of unencumbered ARPA supplemental appropriation funds to the 2024 budget as ARPA revenue replacement, repealing inconsistent ordinance or parts thereof, providing for a severability clause, and providing for an effective date. Ordinance 3161 amends Ordinance 3139, which provided $3.8 million for Upper Darby Business District revitalization. This transfers the unencumbered balance of $3,767,108.42 to revenue replacement. Ordinance 3162 is an ordinance of the Township of Upper Darby, County of Delaware, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, repealing Ordinance 3119 in the entirety and providing for the transfer of unencumbered ARPA supplemental appropriation funds to the 2024 budget as ARPA revenue replacement, repealing inconsistent ordinances or parts thereof, providing for a severability clause, and providing for an effective date. Ordinance 3162 repeals 3119, which provided $3 million for the Upper Darby Community Center. It transfers that $3 million to the revenue replacement. Ordinance 3163 is an ordinance of the Township of Upper Darby, County of Delaware, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, repealing Ordinance 3141 in the entirety and providing for the transfer of unencumbered ARPA supplemental appropriation funds to the 2024 budget as ARPA revenue replacement, repealing inconsistent ordinances or parts thereof, providing for a severability clause, and providing for an effective date. Ordinance 3163 repeals 3141, which provided $800,000 for the nonprofit Upper Darby Arts and Education Foundation to create the Barclay Square Arts and Education Center. The unencumbered balance of $800,000 would be transferred to revenue replacement. Ordinance 3165 is an ordinance of the Township of Upper Darby, County of Delaware, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, providing for the supplemental appropriation for the 2024 budget, appropriating funds provided by the American Rescue Plan Act, state and local fiscal recovery fund to the 2024 budget as ARPA revenue replacement for the Upper Darby Township, repealing inconsistent ordinances or parts thereof, providing for severability clause, and providing for an effective date. This ordinance repeals Ordinance 3138, which provided $1.2 million to lease and make improvements to the senior center located at 5037 Township Line Road in Drexel Hill, and the unencumbered balance of $1.2 million would be placed in revenue replacement. Ordinance 3166 is an ordinance of the Township of Upper Darby, County of Delaware, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, repealing Ordinance 3144 in the entirety and providing for the transfer of unincorporated ARPA supplemental appropriation funds to the 2024 budget as ARPA revenue replacement, repealing inconsistent ordinances or parts thereof, providing for a severability clause, and providing for an effective date. 3136 repeals 3144, which provided $250,000 for the Watkins Center. The unencumbered balance of $250,000 would now be placed in revenue replacement. Ordinance 3167 is an ordinance of Upper Darby Township, Delaware County, providing for the establishment of a capital reserve fund, providing for a transfer of surplus funds of the 2024 budget to the capital reserve fund, repealing inconsistent ordinances or parts thereof, providing for a severability clause, and providing for an effective date. This ordinance establishes a capital reserve fund, moves to $14,448,172.82 that the other ordinances summarily placed into a capital reserve fund, and now puts it into a capital reserve fund that will require council action to spend. Did I miss one? I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. So I must not have it in here, but our ordinance 3165, I don't have it. Let me make sure I have it. Yeah, if you got it. Yeah, I want to make sure I read it like that is, I'm sorry, I got it. I have it, I just skipped it, I'm sorry. Ordinance 3165 is an ordinance of the Township of Upper Darby, County of Delaware, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, providing for supplemental appropriations for the 2024 budget, appropriating funds provided by the American Rescue Plan Act, State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund to the 2024 budget as ARPA revenue replacement for Upper Darby Township, repealing inconsistent ordinances or parts thereof, providing for a severability clause, and providing for an effective date. This ordinance provides supplemental appropriations of ARPA funds to the 2024 budget as revenue replacement for the township, and it specifies an unallocated balance in ARPA funds of $290,694 that may be used as revenue replacement for the 2024 budget. And the transfer allocates that to $290,694 as supplemental appropriations to the 2024 budget. I'll go back to the last one. Thank you. One up. And again, no, back to that. I'm sorry. So again, the summary action of all of this establishes the capital reserve fund, moves to 14.48-172.82 from revenue replacement to capital reserve fund, and the capital reserve fund would then require action on behalf of council to access those funds.
Questions or comments from council members?
Okay, I have questions on all of them. Am I going to be shut down at any point in time? I just want to
Councilor
know,
Wentz,
is
you
there
have the floor.
a limit? Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so all right. Watkins Center was talked about. I do not agree with any of this action. I'll just start off with that. It's a Hail Mary action. We're in June. It's not December. There's plenty of time to implement these ordinances that were passed unanimously by council. There were things that you said in your speech earlier about, pondering about why things hadn't been done. Well, things weren't done because the laws weren't enforced. Point blank. We passed the laws to utilize the funds, and the laws were not enforced by Mayor Keffer. And then when Mayor Brown came in and you came in, you all still didn't. You chose not to enforce the laws that were passed according to ARPA that was passed by council. Okay? Capital budget, I mean, side note, I'll wait on that one. I know that there is a lot of capital improvements that we need to do with this township. I'm very much aware of that. But I am very concerned about taking all these funds and putting them into lost revenue. Now, granted, you have the ordinance at the end that puts it into capital budget thing, but there's a chance that that ordinance doesn't get passed. Once it gets to revenue replacement, there's no guarantee that ordinance gets passed. So, and even then, you're saying some of the capital improvements are going to continue, but some aren't. And it's up for the residents and council and the mayor to weigh in to make those suggestions of change, etc. We've already voted on that. You also made an assumption that we didn't talk to the residents when we were investigating doing these ordinances. You're implying that we didn't go and speak to residents or go to the parks to find out what was needed, that we weren't talking to the residents. There's Fernwood Park there's at least 7 autistic children who live in that neighborhood. The parents have to go there, clean the park from drug paraphernalia. There's been mattresses there. There have been equipment. The equipment wasn't taken care of. It wasn't the residents, the parents paint and take care of that equipment where the township does not. I went and I spoke to people. I went and spoke with the neighbors. You implied that we did not do that we did not do that aspect of investigating into how we were allocating those funds. I did find it very offensive. I found a lot of things very offensive. The implication that we have not done our due diligence as council members to make sure that these funds that we allocated were not allocated in the manner in which the township, the residents, the businesses wanted. It's offensive. I find it greatly offensive that there's constant I've been on council since 2018. Every year, people talk about trash. People talk about needing activities for our youth. That's been one of the #1 things brought to our attention. Activities for our youth. Get them off the street. But in this, you're taking $800,000 from the Upper Darby Arts and Education for an Arts and Education Center, taking that away. I'm a theatrical lighting designer. I'm a stagehand by trade. I teach technical theater. This means the kids who could learn my trade are not going to have that opportunity because the Arts Foundation Educational Center will not be there because of the funding we promised is being taken away from them. In another ordinance with the police, you're taking from the PALS Police Athletic League. That's being taken away. Now, granted, I know that there's some funk in the where they lost their 501c3 and they were trying to get it back, but funds that were promised for that is being taken away. And as far as, so on the capital budget, there have been many misappropriations of funds in the previous administration where rebuilding that parking lot out there took much more funds than they originally had accounted for, or the one center cost a lot more than was originally accounted for. So there is the past administration blew through money like it was going out of style, did no attempts to cut the budget of expenses to afford the budget. And here's an example of where our community is going to have to pay for it. Granted, PFM came and did, when Treasurer Heyman mentioned that they came and gave a speech and talked about the ARPA funds. I specifically asked the gentleman at the town hall, this is how we've allocated our funds. Money for the parks, for the business districts, for the Arts and Education Foundation, for things for the police, for our fire trucks, for our sewer. He said that everything that we had done was correct, that it was reinvestment back into our community that, quite frankly, we were on the verge of bankruptcy. And by putting the money into our community has a better chance of getting money to come back. If we invest in our business districts, now granted, I do find it preposterous that a property that was not in the West Garrett jurisdiction, not in it, Sister Gallagher, I know you don't understand this concept, but from Edmonds to Childs was in the jurisdiction. You bought a property with those funds outside the jurisdiction, but there's 290,000 unassigned ARPA funds that could have been assigned to buy that property, or money left from this open space could have been used to buy that property versus stealing from the business district funds that could have been put back into the business district. There's also, in the COVID relief part, $1 million that had been set aside for grants for a business district, for small businesses. The Keffer administration did nothing to implement that grant program. So not only are we taking funds from the business districts, but we took funds from the small businesses where they could have improved their businesses if they had the opportunity to apply for those grants. You're taking money from our businesses that could have helped us to bring better businesses, other businesses, back into the township to help prevent bankruptcy. But no, you're going to take it for capital improvement. I understand the need for capital improvement. Don't get me wrong. I fully understand it. In fact, I understand it a lot more than a lot of people here. However, taking from our community is the wrong way to do it. And there's no guarantee that your last ordinance will actually pass. I mean, you think it will, but you know, I've seen a lot of strange things happen here. I also, so I'm sorry, I had a lot of things. Okay, and then, so I got that one. You're taking money back from the fire department for fire engines, but we had passed an ordinance. So there was a fire engine that we had allocated $1 million for. Mayor Keffer ordered it, and then when it was about to be delivered, it was weeks away from being delivered to the township. The cost of that truck had gone up by $200,000 to $225,000. Mayor Keffer decided to cancel the truck. Now, if she brought it to council, we probably would have approved those funds. But then 6 months later, they go to purchase the exact same truck, but now it's $400,000 more. So that's an example of the mismanagement of our funds from the previous administration. I would much rather have purchased it for $250,000 or $225,000 extra than $400,000 extra. And I'm being very particular because you've made a lot of references about not understanding why these funds haven't been spent. It hasn't. For the things that haven't been spent is because the mayor at the time chose not to implement the laws, chose not to follow through with the laws passed unanimously by the council at the time. Upgrades to the parks, I talked a little bit about that. Councilman Silva did a whole lot of research on it. There were a lot of specifics. Now, part of the problem with your concerns on specifics, the original ordinances had a lot of specificity. A lot of specificity because we discovered in the first wave of ordinances that we passed, if we weren't specific enough, they didn't actually do what council had intended. So we were extremely specific. I know because I wrote them. And I worked with UHY on them. And then other council members rejected it as well as the administration. And so there was more of a coalition that went into it. But in that coalition, they took out the specificity intentionally, setting us up for this moment. So as we try to implement specificity, it is taken away by those who don't want to use it for the funds, but want to act like they're using it, On one side, they're saying, yes, we're going to, allocate these funds, we're going to vote for it, but we're not going to implement it, right? Talked about the nonprofits. Oh, Friends of Sellers Library. Now, this was a nonprofit that was allocated funds, that is the funds they haven't spent yet, and they're being taken away. Now, there's a resident that comes here to almost every meeting who's a librarian who talks about needing more funding for our libraries. And here's an example where those funds are being taken away and going into capital improvement, but not necessarily going back into the library, right? Because the Friends of Sellers didn't spend their money, right? So you're taken from the libraries again. Sorry, I did a lot of highlighting. I like highlighting. Contingency, I agree with. Take it away. I don't like it when there's contingency on anything in this budget, in any budget, because that's where the past administration hit a lot of shady stuff, and I don't appreciate it. Open acquisition. So only 2 of the 3 properties were purchased on the open acquisition. So there was still funds left in there that could have gone to buy the property that was outside of the jurisdiction of the West Garrett Road Business District. 32,000 could have been taken from there versus stealing from the business district. Gun prevention and education. So thank you for not taking back the funds from the buyback, but you are taking funds away from the gun education, which is really important. Sorry, I'm just trying to find my ordinance on it. Okay, so you're taking from the police athletic, or no? Yeah. So are you taking from the police athletic? Because it says that you crossed it off to 0. So you're taking from police athletic league, 50,000. You're taking from the gun prevention, education, and training, and gun lock program. Now, these are 2 things that residents from the township came out, I believe it was Kyle and Colleen, came out and fought. Residents fought for these 2 items to be included in this ordinance. And you're taking those funds away. Gun prevention, education, and training, that's really important. There are a lot of guns on the street. It's strange. You did mention Cobbs Creek Golf Course. You're thrilled about the new what's coming. I'm not thrilled about that because I can hear 69th Street clearly. I can hear all the gunshots as if they are right next to my house because all the thousands of trees are gone. So that's some, and there's also, I'm hoping that you are also including in the flood mitigation. I know that at least one of the interceptors needed $450,000 more. So we were supposed to deal with that and it didn't happen. But I am very concerned about the funds being taken from the police. I did talk about the fire. I think I'll stop now and then I'll come back if there's anything else I find that I missed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Wentz. Councilor Andrusko.
Yep. Thank you for the presentation, CA Jones. I was hoping to ask this question to Mayor Brown tonight, but I'll ask you since he's not here. Is there any guarantee that the same projects will be completed once these funds are moved to the capital reserve?
I can't say I guarantee them, but I can say that there has been no discussion about taking away most of these projects. The truth of the matter is, again, these resolutions don't necessarily eliminate projects. It protects the funding. The only, and I think the mayor has been transparent about the concern about the $800,000 project. I know he's been transparent about that. But every other project that has been listed, I haven't had any conversations about eliminating the project. The goal has been about protecting the money so projects can get done. It's not, I do want to say in response to Councilor Wentz, so Certainly, I want to apologize if anybody inferred from my conversations about what I've seen as far as project descriptors had nothing to do with what any council member did or didn't do, what a current or previous mayor did or didn't do. I purely looked at it from a standpoint of when I saw a project that said, again, I go back to it, when I saw a project that said economic development, whatever, and I asked the question specifically, what does that mean? And I did not see specifically what that meant. I say, let's define what that means. Whatever council determines what that means. We'll give our input, we'll get community input, we'll get business input, we'll get your input to determine what that means. I know from my conversations with Mayor Brown about the projects, he wants to see a rec center. He wants a community center. He wants to see investment in the parks. He wants to see pretty much what everybody on council has said they want to see. What I'm interested in doing and what we're recommending and what he agreed to is let's protect this money so that that can actually happen. So again, not one of these ordinances brought forward was an ordinance to eliminate the project. It was an ordinance to move the money from where it is ultimately to a capital fund that ultimately the council has control over spending so that we wouldn't have any issue with the spending. Whatever anybody wants to say about UHY or any other group like that, and I've worked with groups like that, their job is not to tell us how to spend the money. Their job is to make sure that whatever we're doing related to that money is within the rules, the federal rules that are handed down. And so we rely on them to make sure what we're doing complies with federal regulations, and we're doing that. This money and federal regulations do say, regardless of what anybody might think, federal regulations do say encumbered by December 31st, 2024. Federal regulations do say spent by December 31st, 2026. And what this does for this community, like many other communities are doing, put it in a place, revenue replacement, ultimately to capital investment fund, so that you have the time without the pressure of doing that to do whatever projects council wants to do. Oh, and one last thing with respect to the fire department, police department, all of the departments internally were queried in terms of whether or not they needed to use the balance of the money that they had. It wasn't an arbitrary decision by the mayors, and it wasn't an arbitrary decision by me. We actually sat with the departments and said what those projects are. A lot of this movement of money, again, is not killing any projects. It's moving the money to a place
Please,
where it's
this is
going
your only warning.
where it's going to be accessible beyond and regardless of those stipulations by the federal government.
Yeah, I just think it's important for the public and for members who weren't here last year, the part of the council, part of the administration, to understand what went through with that allocation process. I was one of the many members on council who worked to get the allocations together, and I think we were really excited, and we spoke with UHY, and we found compliant things, and we had a good amount of runway, and we found projects that we thought were meaningful to the community, and we probably over-allocated these projects with the expectation that we had the runway to complete them, and then we would come back to the table, and we would reallocate, and if need be, and we got to this point where we need to allocate, we would put it by the end of 2024. And unfortunately, due to failure of the last administration and inaction of this current administration, we're not getting the opportunity to do so. So I think that's something that's just frustrating in itself. And then I think with no guarantee, I don't understand how we can support those who voted last year, 11-0, can support an ordinance today with no guarantee that the same projects are going to be done. So.
Thank you, Councilor Andrusko. Good. Okay, I'm going to speak. Thank you, CAO Jones and council members. Yes, I'm one of the council members that did vote for the 11 ordinances last year. However, tonight I will be supporting repealing these ordinances and placing them from revenue replacement to capital reserve. Just to be frank with the public, when we were in the minority last year during this process, we found out about the allocations 4 days before the votes. We were called at the 11th hour to come to the table and presented with ideas that's already been done without our participation. My colleague at large, Councilor Wentz, she mentioned how much work Mr. Silver worked on Naylor's Run. We were not included in any of that. We didn't find out about that until it was presented in front of us. And at the time, 4 days prior to the vote, we were in a position that we understood it was going to be passed with or without us. We were given very few limited options. And I don't believe, I hear everyone saying it was voted unanimously. It was voted unanimously. You don't hear anyone say we had neighborhood meetings. You don't hear anyone say we worked with the administration. So in my opinion, I want to move forward with a process that involves all council members, not the 11th hour, involves the administration and public input. Now, these projects can still happen. It's more about how, right? And how they will happen. I think this process would include all of council, the administration, and the public. And I'm very confident. I think putting these funds in a restricted account is going to help us. It's going to give council more power than we didn't have in the past. And this could prevent some of the theories council members had about the administration. This is one way we can keep our eye on the funds and make sure our project in the new council, right? There are new council members here. I think it's important they have an opinion on these funds. So I will be supporting this. It includes the administration and the township. It's going to be a community-driven process and an established capital reserve. I know some of my colleagues are not happy and they view me, you can say whatever you would like to say about me, but what I would say is amending these resolutions gives us a golden opportunity to bring Upper Darby forward, move Upper Darby forward. And some of these projects I believe in, we all believe in, but what's the actual process? What does it mean when you give certain folks money? Why does some of these properties have to be at specific addresses, right? Is there only one shopping center in Drexel Hill? There's more than one shopping center in Drexel Hill. So there are a lot of different things we can look at than just set in stone. And no, I do not regret voting for it in the past. That was the best option at the time. And currently today, I feel like we have different options. So I will be supporting this. Is there any other comments from council members?
Yes, please.
Wagner?
First of all, I've got a whole lot to say, and I'm going to first start with, and I wasn't going to do this, but what you just said is not entirely correct. You may have things that you got this at the 11th hour. If I recall, after that, Councilman Andrusco and I, as representatives of one side, and you and Heyman, sat down, and we spent hours and hours going over these things, and we had to make calls and get everybody on board. So don't put it out there like that didn't happen. You were absolutely involved in this, and so were you, as well as the rest of council. I got to tell you, when these ordinances were passed last year, and after spending so much time going over it and meeting and talking and coming to what I believed, and I think everybody believed, was the best interest of everyone across the township. And that's how these ordinances were drafted, and that's how we came up with them. And I recall at July and August, when these were passed unanimously, saying how proud I was to be up on this council, because that's government. That's good government, when you can come together, act bipartisanly for the betterment of the citizens who put you in office and the citizens who live in the area in which you govern. I got to tell you, I feel completely the opposite tonight, and I am disgusted. What you're doing right now is completely the opposite of what we wanted to do and what our intentions were. We came together, what I thought was in good faith, and Councilman Andrusco will, I'm sure, agree with me that we both thought that these negotiations, conversations, agreements, discussions were in good faith. I think now they were actually in bad faith. We were acting in good faith. They were not. And to sit up here and say now you're going to backtrack on it. And Mr. Jones, with all due respect, you kept saying during much of your presentation, ultimately our decision. No, it was ultimately our decision in July and August of last year. And it was passed 11-0. It was our decision then. What's the point of us being up here if the mayor's just going to do whatever he wants? I mean, utterly ridiculous. And if you want to sit here and say that there's no way this money can be spent by the end of the year, it should have been if the administration had done their job to begin with. Those ordinances were passed 11-0. The mayor did not veto them at the time, and we all know they then become law. What we're doing right now is a violation of the law. And speaking of the law, I think maybe we should also talk about certain words. Encumbered versus obligation, they're very different. That money is obligated. It's already been done, and now it needs to be enacted. That's what should have happened. And the bottom line is, you up here, you're not taking this away from me. You're taking it away from the citizens of Upper Darby Township. That's who you're taking it from. You're taking it from the youth. You're taking it from our police. You're taking it from the senior citizens and our business districts. And to say that we didn't have a plan is nonsense. We had an absolute plan. The senior center, the Arts Foundation, Mr. Jones, you yourself, I took you to one of the business owners that I had already been in contact with and what we were going to do in my district. So to sit up here and put this stuff out here is nonsense. Also, by the way, the ARPA federal statute says the recipient must not amend a contract or sub-award with the intention of avoiding the deadline. Well, that's exactly what I think you're up here saying you're doing. So how many more ways do we want to violate the law? Is there any more? Because there's another one I think I want to mention. There is also active litigation in this right now. Doing this right now is absurd and absolutely offensive. There's no reason that we should be doing this right now while there's active litigation going on. And I got to be clear, because this is going back in front of a judge in the Common Pleas Court, and I want to make it very clear that me, Councilwoman Wagner, does not agree with what's going on right now. And frankly, I'm a defendant in the case. I don't believe that I'm getting adequate representation, which is something I will address at another time. But frankly, this is absurd. This is utterly absurd. And to sit up here and act like this is okay, it's not okay. And I am so disgusted watching anybody up here act like it's an okay thing to do. It is absolutely not. And frankly, I think anybody up here who is going to vote for this tonight should be ashamed of themselves and now are just admitting to the residents of Upper Darby Township that you acted in bad faith before and you don't care, and you're only here for your own political agendas. I'm here to tell you, I am not here for a political agenda. I'm not a senior. I'm not youth. Frankly, I don't own a business in Upper Darby. I care about the citizens here. I care about making Upper Darby better. Clearly, everybody who wants to vote for this tonight only cares about their own political agendas, and that is disgusting.
Thank you, Councilor Wagner. Vice President Hayman?
President Tunis, actually, I'll ask my question for the solicitor. Solicitor Kilkenny, would you be comfortable with a single motion to introduce and advertise all of these ordinances at once instead of going ordinance by ordinance?
So what I would suggest in this matter is I would suggest that we actually go ordinance by ordinance. I think that that's the most cautious thing to do. And although I think it would be easier or less if everybody here wants to go ahead and do it in one omnibus kind of thing, if everybody's okay with that, then I'm okay with that. But I just wanted to be clear and give everyone the right to comment on issues.
Is everyone okay with it doing all together? Okay.
Okay.
I would
All right.
if Solicitor Kilkenny is comfortable with it, then.
Okay.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to introduce and advertise ordinance.
There's more comments.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to wait to the
Do
comments?
you have any comments, or you just the motion?
That was it.
Okay, Councilor Banto?
Thank you. For the listening public, I'm going to have Sean on. Oh, I'm sorry. I said for the listening public, I'm going to have Sean on record. Sean, I'm going to ask you this question. To repeal this ordinance, is it allowed by law?
Yes. And I'm basing that in the Home Rule Charter, related to our appropriations in Section 903. There's a whole different level. I'd also like to, Councilor Wagner brought up the active litigation in this. I'd like to ask Mr. Gallagher, who was counsel along with Ms. Marcini and and Mr. Jones was also there, just to go over his view of what the judge asked for.
Thank you, counsel, and thank you, Solicitor Kilkenny. The following I'm going to read is intended to clarify the court's direction from the April 22nd, 2024 hearing that was ultimately postponed. After determining that the matter necessitated a continuance, the court directed that CAO Jones prepare a worksheet identifying all of the funds that have been appropriated by ARPA ordinances and identify the money that has been spent or encumbered to date. As part of that worksheet, CAO Jones was to identify where the money was spent or encumbered and a timeline of spending encumbered funds. For all of the funds that have not been spent or encumbered, CAO Jones was also directed to seek input from the various township departments, from the township council, from Mayor Brown, and from legal counsel as to a process for spending the remaining unspent or unencumbered funds. The expenditure or encumbrance of funds was to be discussed, and an opportunity for public comment was to be permitted for the following 4 meetings after the continued hearing. Finally, the court left to the discretion of Township Council whether to move forward with the appropriations contained in each ordinance, provided, of course, that discussion about this would occur in a public meeting. The court requested that prior to the next hearing, which is scheduled for July, a progress update be submitted by the township and that the worksheets prepared by CAO Jones be provided to the plaintiffs in the matter. The court did not direct or order that any of the ordinances remain in effect, or that the funds must be spent in their entirety. Thank you.
And just for clarification, I misspoke. The 2 charter sections I want to talk about in relation to Councilor Banco was in the 900 section, but more specifically 909 and 910, the amendments after adoption, and 910, the lapse of appropriations. Thank you.
Okay, I still have
Yeah,
the floor.
Councilor
So
Bento.
my follow-up question would be, has any repeal been done in this chamber before?
Yes.
Okay. Now, President Tony, I want to make a quick comment. So we have all of the ordinance before us tonight, and pretty soon we are going to vote over these things. We're transferring money or allocating money. One thing I want to stress here is, and for the record, for the listening public, for our residents at home, my constituents, I was elected to come here and represent my district. And this job, I take this job very seriously. The CEO was in my district yesterday. I have something called district audit. I walk my district every day, taking pictures of things that are happening in my district. And I'm planning, this is my plan. Every week, I give my audit report. So I'm not waiting for residents to report situation to me before I can send it to the one center. I go around and see for myself, take picture, and send it over. That's how you fix things. Now, coming to this money, I'm going to vote on this money. I know this money is a good intention attached to it, so I'm going to vote on it. All right? Because what is being discussed here tonight, one of the issues that everybody talking about here, it's in my district, the walking center. It's in my district. There's no way I will see the old people not having place to be and sit here tonight and do the wrong thing. So one thing I can tell you, I'm going to vote on this. And what that means is we're going to make sure that this money is guarded, that we review all the projects that are in, apparently, what the previous council did, there's a question with something. This is why the budget has not been, or wherever it has not been passed. So these things need to be reviewed. Our allocation is not proportionally balanced. All right? So we have to look at these things. Where money needs to be spent, where needs are heavily, or where we see the needs in the township, money are not going there. So maybe, who knows? So we have to re-examine these things. And secondly, I asked a question before in this council. I asked the CAO, all of the projects that we are talking about with allocation, do you have a project proposal?
We're developing project proposals that we will be bringing, yes.
I mean previous projects, all of what we are talking about tonight.
Yes.
The senior center, the DA. Do you have physical proposal with specifics.
Well, that's what we're going to bring before you, of projects with specifics.
Councilor
the
Banto's question
you are
is
not asking-
prior.
Answering my
No, the
question.
prior projects.
What I'm saying, project that you have on the list now that we are going to review tonight, where funds were allocated for, do you have physical proposal of those projects describing specific of what money going to be spent on?
No.
Okay, so then there's a need that this money be put somewhere until we can examine and do our needs assessment of project that need to be taken care of in this township, so that funds will be proportionally, equally given to district. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bento. Councilor Silva?
Thanks. I don't want to go into detail about all of these because I'm less familiar with all of these than I am about Ordinance 3137. There was a specific proposal. I was renovating Naylor's Run is something I've been passionate about. I've spoke about well before the 4th day before we passed this ordinance, Mark. It's been mentioned many times. I talked to Larry McCullough, who is with General Recreation, who is a vendor that we frequently use here in the township. I also presented the plans that Larry submitted to me at a meeting that was held at the One Center here when the Delaware County Planning was like the Parks Planning Commission and the township was here. I was in regular discussion with, I'm not sure of her title, but Allison Dobbins was, I guess, co-CAO something, however that was. But we were in regular discussion because, I guess I wasn't allowed to talk to everybody in the administration back then. But also the Penn Pines $50,000 was also from Larry McCullough to replace a piece of equipment that was involved in, I guess, an incident where someone was hurt. They had a play area that would replace that. A lot of the other equipment, to be honest, if I could get a little less numbery and a little more personal, some of this is, so over the last couple of years, right, raising a small child, when we go to a playground, we typically get in a car and drive to one that's not in Upper Darby. I mean, not to be mean or anything, there's one across the street. It's okay when the kids in the neighborhood are here and she's playing with them. But otherwise, we actually walk to Clifton Heights because they have a nice playground there. And like, if the neighborhood kids aren't at our playground, there's kind of no draw. It's dirty. It's got graffiti. It's old. It's tired. It's got mold on it. It's kind of not sanitary. There's a lot of playgrounds in Upper Darby that actually meet that description. I mean, even Penn Pines, which could be it's a nice neighborhood. The one piece that was involved in this incident that had to be taken down was, in my mind, the nicest one, because there's ones that literally have sheet metal riveted to where parts broke off, which looks like another accident waiting to happen. But Windermere, I'd ask to be included on this as well, because there's like a little bridge that the kids go from one climbing structure to another, where the pins are rusted almost through, the swings are bent, and again, we wanted, it's one of those silly things when you run for office, like you're going to do a playground tour with your kid because you're a proud papa and you're running for office or whatever. But we started doing that, and then we kind of stopped because we didn't like what we were seeing that much. And then we did talk to people. We talked to a bunch of different people on a bunch of different issues. A lot of these playgrounds were included in that, like, get the gang together. Let's, try to see what we have to do. I mean, like Councilman Tunis asked for item G, which, I mean, I understand. You want to have playgrounds in your district. You want to have playgrounds that are accessible to the people that you know. But we were asked not to be specific by the solicitor at the time, I believe it was Solicitor Marcini, because the concern was if you had a specific, agenda and item, and if costs changed, then they wouldn't be able to move ahead with it. That was the explanation. But now it's being said that because it's not specific, there really wasn't anything. It's like something you made in your basement or something, which is not the case. So, look, I mean, I don't care what you call it. I don't care who you said puts it in, but I hope that we could do something for the children of this district. Because I can drive my kid to Springfield, I can drive her to Havertown, I can drive her wherever I want. Not everybody around here has a car. Do you know what I mean? So it's not, I mean, Gulf Road, right? I mean, it's pretty much landlocked between Westchester Pike, Victory Lane, and State Road. If I had a small child, I wouldn't want them crossing any of those three. Do you know what I mean? They have that playground, that's their playground, and it could really use help. So, I mean, at this point, I know you have the votes to do what you want to do and by whatever, but I'm pleading, do something for these kids. That's all I got.
Thank you. Councilor Silva. Councilor Vice President Hayman.
Before I go ahead and make a motion, I just want to also say, Mr. Jones, I've heard people attack you, level personal, disgusting, and inappropriate attacks at you this evening from this dais. And I want to say that I apologize for that. Members of this body, this is not a bar or a Trump rally. These shouldn't be screamed at like that. I'd like to make a motion to introduce, there's another one right there, but again, we're not in a bar. I'd like to make a motion to introduce and advertise ordinances 3156, 3157, 3158, 3159, 3160, 3161, 3162, 3163, 3164, 3165, 3166, and 3167. Can I get a
Second.
Motion made by Vice President Hayman, seconded by Councilor Banto. 1 second, can I just explain? Because when I originally started this, I asked everyone on council if they were okay with CAO Jones speaking, council providing comment, and then voting. I'm gonna give Councilor Wentz the floor, but that's what we all agreed on. If we remember, I'm gonna give you the floor, and then we're gonna go to the
Well,
vote.
this is per Robert's Rules of Order, actually.
I asked
I
Councilor
appreciate
Pryor,
that.
and you now
I
have the floor.
I appreciate it. I just wanted to clarify one of your comments. When we were talking about ARPA funds, I was chair of the finance committee, and at every single meeting, I asked everyone on council if there was anything they wanted funds to be allocated for, to send them to myself or anyone on the finance committee. Every single meeting for months, I asked the same, I made the same statement. Every single meeting. So when you say that you weren't included, when you say that you didn't know, you didn't send anything in. You didn't ask for anything. Councilman Silva talked about the parks at many meetings, about allocations for the parks at many meetings. If you choose not to weigh in, that's on you. That's not on us. It's not that you didn't know, you chose not to be involved. I just wanted to clarify, and I agree with everything Councilwoman Wagner, Councilman Silva, and Councilman Andrusko has said.
Thank you, Councilor Wentz. There's a motion and second on the floor. Secretary Billups, can I have a roll call vote? The motion on the floor is to approve ordinances 3156, 3157.
Introduce and advertise.
I'm sorry, introduce to advertise. Ma'am, I'm trying to continue with the meeting and being disruptive. Too old for that. 3156, 3157, 3158, 3159, 3160, ordinance 3161, 3162, 3163, 3164, 3165, 3166, and 3167 to introduce and advertise.
Yeah. I just want to say one thing. People, and this is for me personally, talking about having political agenda. First of all, I am too damn old. I am not running for another office. I don't have any political agenda. So I just want to get that on the record. So this is for request for council approval to advertise all of those ordinances. I'm not going to go through all those numbers again because President Tunis said it. So Vice President Hayman.
Yes.
Secretary Billups is a yes. Councilor Minnick.
Yes.
Councilor Wagner.
No.
President Tunis.
Yes.
Councilor Banto.
Yes.
Councilor Brandis.
Yes.
Councilor Andrusko.
No.
Councilor Wentz.
Hard no.
Councilor Silva.
No.
Counselor Blackwell.
Yes.
Okay. So. 8-4.
Okay. Ordinance is passed. A4. Next item on the agenda is, I'm sorry, the ordinance are introduced and
Introduce-
advertised.
Your math is
Apologize.
wrong.
Introduce
and advertise, I would say.
Yes.
Introduce to advertise. 4 noes. Out -11. 4 minus 11 is 7.
Passes.
You said 8-4.
Okay.
Okay, well,
Okay,
apologize.
Counselor West.
Well,
misspoke.
I've
I
noticed that there's problems doing math here,
I
so.
misspoke. I misspoke.
Point of order, President Tunis, personal attacks like that. Counselor Wagner,
All right,
Counselor Wentz
Counselor.
is first to tell.
I'm sick and tired. I'm sick and tired of people making innuendos. If you got something to say out to me, let's meet outside.
All right.
Okay? I'm tired of it. We can meet outside.
Thank you, Secretary Phillips.
Outside.
Thank
I'm
you.
talking to Counselor Wentz, and I'm saying it live and in color. What?
Counselors?
I've
Thank you.
been clear.
So it passes, the ordinance passes 7-4. Okay? All right. The next item on the agenda is the President of Council. Our next council meeting is June 26th. It's a late night, so next we're going to go to committee reports. Counselor Brannis?
Yeah, I'm gonna keep this short, and I have no idea what just happened here.
Same.
But you know what? I'm glad I didn't hear what happened, and because I was going over ARPA stuff with Mr. Councilman Andrews.
Counselor Brannis, just continue.
Anyway, so I'll keep it real quick. The Law and Government Committee. I just want to reiterate something that that President Tunis said last week. We want to get things done in this township. I know that in my district, I have requests coming through my email. I call everybody, I email everybody back, I go and meet them, and things are not getting done no matter how much I push it through the one center or anything else. So what President Tunis had said last week was that there are a lot of things when it comes to ordinances or something as simple as street signs, no parking signs, whatever it is. We don't have a lot of procedures that have been written. Now, I have talked to CAO Jones. I do also want to extend some talk time to Public Works because they are in charge of a lot of that. But it seems like this township for many, 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 many years has been serviced willy-nilly. Some people get stuff, some people don't. And everybody is confused on how to get what they want. If you want a street sign, if you want a trash can, if you want this, if you want that, there is no rhyme or reason to how things have been done. So I will be calling a meeting next week of the Law and Government Rules and Procedures Committee. So I do hope everybody joins in and I get everybody's input on that. And again, I will be talking to CAO Jones and I will be looping in the Public Works Committee with that as well. But if you do have any concerns or anything that's happening that you are don't have a procedure on, or you want to know how it happens, bring it to my attention so that way I can put that on the list of things that we can talk about.
Thank you, Counselor Brannis. Next, we have Public Health and Environmental Affairs. Counselor Blackwell with an update for the committee.
Okay, so on Saturday, June 1st, 2024, we had a cleanup. We have cleanups every fourth Saturday of the month where we meet at Observatory Field, which will definitely not be left out of any funds. We branch out to single blocks. Also, the movie Trigger was on June 4th. It was in collaboration with the Pennsylvania Human Relations Committee for Delaware County. June is Gun Violence Month. The movie will be presented again. Also, we would like to just recognize Rachel Mitchell, school board member who is stepping down. Just make a special note to that. Also, on June 10th, 2024 at 12 noon, there will be another hygiene giveaway at 69th Street in collaboration with the Zagat Foundation. Anyone is able to meet and to help give out hygiene packets. They are absolutely free. Also, I met with, well, not just me, committee members met with the Upper Darby Environmental Advisory Committee regarding a final report and recommendations on a plastic pollutions ordinance, and you should get more information regarding that soon.
Thank you, Counselor Blackwell. Next item on the agenda is our solicitor.
Thank you very much. I know I had a little more prepared this evening, but knowing it's late, I just wanted to bring to your attention, yesterday, our office participated in oral argument for the Starbucks that was contemplated on the border of Upper Darby and Haverford Township. We joined with our own zoning hearing board in defending our zoning hearing board's decision. And it was heard in Commonwealth Court, aligning with the applicant. So hopefully that moves forward, and Starbucks will be coming to Upper Darby in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Solicitor Kilkenny. Councilor Silver?
Actually, it was a question more for Councilwoman Blackwell, but when we had our meeting with the EAC about the
Yes.
plastic ban, they were interested in trying to schedule a time for the whole council to hear a presentation
Yes.
on a possible plastic pollution ban. And we're wondering if we could get the ball moving on that, or
Yeah, so I apologize, councilors, I was not aware. We can schedule that for the next meeting if you guys can do the legwork of connecting with the EAC. And if they're prepared, we can have them come in the next meeting.
okay.
Okay.
All right?
Or we could schedule it, or if they're not ready in 2 weeks.
Yeah, just whatever works for them.
Okay.
And I'll adjust the council schedule.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Matt.
Is this for Councilor Blackwell?
It's to the conversation you're just having right this second.
Councilor Wentz?
Is it plastic altogether or plastic bags?
I believe at this point it would be plastic bags.
Okay.
I mean, other stuff would be later in the future, but basically controlling the amount of plastic bags, given it like retail establishments, or how they're basically.
Well, a lot of our community, a lot of the communities around us have already done this, so.
Yeah.
I would encourage, let's just wait for the presentation and kind of take it from there. The next item, I'm sorry, Councilor Andruska. All right. Next item on the agenda is old business. Councilor Wentz?
Great, thank you. All right, so, CAO Crandall, you mentioned a 5-year capital budget plan being a new thing. It's not. The Home Rule Charter requires an annual, every year. Now, granted, I say this knowing that the previous administration only did it once. They did a 5-year plan in 2020, but they violated the Home Rule Charter by not doing the annual plan that's required by the Home Rule Charter, which is supposed to be an update of the 5-year plan, but they didn't do it. They did it in 2020, and then they didn't do a capital budget plan any years after that. So a 5-year plan is not new to us. It's just that we haven't had an update for 2021, 2022, 2023. They ignored that part of the budget requirements within the Home Rule Charter. So I just wanted to let you know about that. There was an event, I should have reported on it in May, in our May meeting that both Councilwoman Blackwell and I attended. It was the grand opening for Love to Care, emergency foster care and foster home. First ever emergency foster home in the state of Pennsylvania is here in Upper Darby. Councilwoman Blackwell and I got a chance to speak at the grand opening. They have, their goal is to provide emergency foster care for birth to 11 years old, keeping the siblings together, which hardly ever happens in the foster care system. So we got a great tour of the house. State Representative Gina Curry was there. And so I just wanted to let you know, they had come to council while I was council president, and had done a land development, and there was because it had never been done before, there was a whole lot of stuff, hoops they had to leap through in order to accomplish it, but it has opened. It's on Westchester Pike, near the Oakwood Apartments. So if you get a chance to stop by and see them, that'd be great. I just wanted to thank everyone who came out for Memorial Day events, and having those representation of the elected officials throughout our township taking part in that. I know the veterans and their families were thankful. As to the reference to Cobbs Creek Golf Course, I bought my house in 2004. When I bought my house, behind my house was nothing but trees. I saw a little bit of the golf course. I see the 100 line. There's trees, the 100 line, and more trees, tons of trees, thousands of trees. I heard a little bit of the golf, not too bad, not a big deal. I never saw 69th Street yard. I never saw it. I didn't hear it and I didn't see it. But when they came through and they cut down those trees, thousands of trees, 500 heritage trees that have been here for hundreds and hundreds of years were cut down. And there was a lot of political shenanigans that went in Philadelphia in reference to all that. I can clearly see the transportation yard from the back of my house. I see the lights at night. I hear the gunshots clearly as if they're next to me. It's not just me. It's everyone along Parkview. We all see it. In fact, in the 510, everyone along the 100 line sees it and hears it. So I know that the concept of what they're doing sounds great, but it's really horrible for those of us who live along it. It also is horrible for the wildlife that used to live there, that are now seen throughout other communities because they had to go somewhere, right? So I understand, everyone's excited, this new golf course is coming, but the destruction to the environment, and they even said at a meeting that they were cutting down all the trees to do stormwater management. You took down all the trees that drank the water. How is that possible? So I just wanted to let you know, the mayor might be excited about it, but I can tell you, there are thousands of Upper Darby residents that are not because of what we see every day and hear every day. As to the minutes, since I didn't get a chance to talk about it while we were dealing with the minutes, I voted no because I found that in the minutes, a lot of the minutes I appreciate, but in the minutes, council discussion keeps showing up with no breakdown of the council discussion. The mayor gets a paragraph, the chairs of the committees get a paragraph. I'm thankful for the residents getting something written about them, but council discussion is actually very critical to the council meeting. And by not having that included in our minutes is a problem. It used to be included. And I just wanted to put that out there that, these need to have more detail, in my opinion. So that's all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Wentz. Councilor Andrusco?
Yeah, Councilor Wentz, I just want to provide some clarification regarding the Cobb's Creek project. I actually was invited there to check out the site, and I think there's some confusion. There's sort of two different aspects to the project itself. There is the golf course renovation, which you mentioned, which I understand your frustrations regarding. And the second part that I think CA Jones was referencing, and I think Mayor's very enthusiastic about, is the TGR Foundation that's coming in. So the TGR Foundation actually is Tiger Woods Foundation, and he has this Tiger Woods Academy out in Anaheim, California, where it's basically a community center where kids from the area come in. There's tutoring, there's mentoring, they do study programs, they help with college applications, and they actually give college scholarships. And they're building their first one on the Northeast here at Cobb's Creek. So I think that's what he's referencing. And I really think it's going to be a great asset to this community, serving all the kids in this community. And like I said, I mean, there's scholarship opportunities for Upper Darby students. So I really think it is going to be a great thing. I understand your frustrations with the golf course, but I just want to provide clarification on the other opportunities that are coming here as well.
And I fully understand that. I was part of a meeting with the Philadelphia Planning Commission or Arts Commission, or one of their commissions, and that was part of the discussion. But the devastation, they could have done it in a different way, where there wasn't so much devastation all at once, and they didn't consider anyone else. And they sold the lumber. They sold those heritage trees like they meant nothing.
Thank you, councilors. No further old business?
Yeah, quick. So I just want to take this time, President Tom, to say thank you so much to the CAO for honoring my invitation. He visited me yesterday in the district, and we toured the district as well. So, and thanks to the clerk for arranging the trip. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Banto. There's no further old business? Councilor Brannis?
I just want to thank Upper Darby Fire Company and all the volunteer fire companies that responded to a fire that I went to during the day last week. It was actually one of the council members of Collingdale, which I know is not Upper Darby's district, but to see everybody from our area and from other districts pull together to go and respond to that house fire so quickly and save everybody's life that was in there was wonderful. So thank you.
Can you just remind the public on the event?
Shredding event, June 22nd, Upper Darby High School. We're going to do it in the parking lot by the football stadium.
Understood. No further old business, any new business? Seeing none. Secretary Billups.
Seeing none.
Look to my left.
Yeah. So thank you, Council President. So I just want to apologize because I lost my cool, and I want to apologize to you publicly, Councilor Wentz, for what I said, and apologize to the public. It's frustrating for me. I can't speak for anyone else, but it's frustrating for me when innuendos and remarks are made about not just my character, but others' characters up here, and people don't know people. You know some of us just because we sit up here, but some people don't know us because you don't spend time with us. And quite frankly, I'm not asking you to. But I just want to apologize to you, Councilor Wentz, and apologize to the public for losing my cool. So I just want to apologize to you
I
for that.
accept your apology, and I apologize for my innuendo. I share your frustration. However, I do sit next to someone who called me a racist and a white supremacist, and I am neither of those things.
Yeah.
But yet I have to sit next to him every day.
Yeah.
If I could handle that, you can handle what you encountered today, because it really was not much. But I do
didn't say-
apologize
now,
for
see,
my part.
I didn't say that I couldn't.
I apologize
say
for
that I
my part of the
couldn't.
equation.
I did
but
not say that I couldn't. What I
Secretary Phillips has
did
the floor.
say, what I did
my-
say was that I apologized to you for what I said.
And I
That's
apologize
all
to
I
you for
said.
what I
That's
said.
all I said. So thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Aye.
You don't have to speak.
Yeah.
He's been here the whole time.